You know what, Yamato? TES is going to be different this time. I'm so sick of people forcing old historical narratives that don't fit the players they're putting on the server now. They're not only going to challenge for the MSI title, but I'll tell you what, these Western teams are going to learn to respect the power of the LPL.
Good news, Thorin. They're up 2-0 already. The rookies are looking fantastic. 2-0 against G2, the team that defeated them 3-0 at an MSI in the past. It's looking fantastic.
Amazing. G2 is the only Western team that even beats Asian teams in best of 5. Remember, this is best of 5 and double elim. Finally, we're actually getting to see how good TES is, how good Tian is. You know what? Smash the first 2 games, probably just going to dominate this 3rd game, right? After you get to Scuttle, I think it's a sweep, if you ask me.
Oh, what's that? Oh, I got some bad news. Report is Tobias just got reverse swept. Shit.
Well, you know, it was one type of a sweep. Okay, maybe not the type I was expecting. You know what? That's fine, though. That's okay. You know what? They'll take their loss there. They'll learn from it. They were up 2 games. They were leading in that 3rd game. They'll just take that. They'll go to the lower bracket. Remember, they've got the easy run. They'll just take care of this shitty little LCP team, push them to one side. Then it's just an easy cakewalk against the LCS. Next thing you know, they're top 4, and then you'll have to respect them.
You know, they just lost the LCP team.
Oh, no. Well, you know what, though? Listen, hold a second. To be fair, though, the LCP can produce some good teams. You know what? If you want an underdog at an international event, think about it. CFO with Honkyu and Junjie. Used to have PSG Talon back in the day with Maple. Those Taiwanese have always actually been slightly underrated in League of Legends, to be fair.
And even worse news. This team was fully Vietnamese.
Well, you know what? It's not like any major power has ever lost to Vietnam in an unexpected manner. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to learn my lesson now, Yamato. I'm definitely never going to get tricked by top esports ever again until the next international tournament. Right, okay, there you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There was the opening skit. Because, yes, do you know what? Let's just start with this as the first topic. Even though, by the way, there was like some bangers like the BLG versus T1 match. We've had some really interesting back and forth. Actually, even, by the way, the Western teams, when they've even lost to some of the Asian teams, have had some interesting matches where they've been in them and then they've had like chances and the drafts. Obviously, the thing that has to dominate this episode, next episode will be the one about the best teams. It has to be the top esports topic. That's what we pointed out in the intro there. Bro, what's so crazy is this isn't even the normal TES failure. This isn't like things are just bad out the gate and you can never beat anyone good. As I joked about there, bro, in that series against G2, they were up 2 games. First 2 games when they looked awesome too. If you actually were an LPL fan, you were like, see, this, you were doing the fucking Leonardo DiCaprio and that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme, that one like that on the TV. Like, see, that's Tian. That's what we were telling you. That's the guy that can do that to Skewbon. The problem is, like moments into game 3, he just decided to on some blabber shit, like in the whole game for a crab. Like, what? And then it went from that to shit the rest of the series, get your ass handed to you. And as I say, mate, that losing to that specific LCP team was one of the craziest like insults to injury I've ever seen ever. Like, because if in the first game you could have had the whole we had like a moral victory type thing going on. The last one there, that's more embarrassing than any other TS elimination in the past. Like, this is crazy work. Like, I genuinely, I'm such a mixed bag. This one, there's so many aspects. Go, well, let's start with the G2 series. What did you think?
It was so strange because you know, the big points of worry for me was you know, I thought the Tian internationally was looking better and better in the last ones that he played. They had the collapse like back in, what was it, 21. That was like the worst one for Tian, and ever since then it looked up. Jackie Love has been a question mark at internationals, but a question mark that I had specifically for this team was how are the 2 international rookies going to fare? And they were the best players in game 1 and 2. We had, of course, Zhuo on the Ambassador performance, and of course Fengyue with one of the best Nico performances ever. He was just, you know, like Randy Orton, just coming out of nowhere, just RKOing G2, and from G2 side, you could see like some of the individual players, the most important players, the key players were just getting outplayed in Caps and of course Skewmon. So you had everything that you could ask for, but somehow the tide just shifted the moment in game 3. We had a situation on Crab where it was grabbed by the Syndra and then pulled into the tower, and then it was pushed all the way. and for some reason, Tian couldn't let it go. And it felt like that was the moment where the clock struck 12 like Cinderella, because everything kind of just shifted. I believe in G2, you know, finding their traction.
Even in a fucking solo queue, that would be questionable to go in on that. Like, I still don't know what possessed him to do that, man. It's so
the most psychotic thing ever. And it was always the same. For some reason, there were moments where Tian made such a crucial mistake that cost him so much in all of the 3 games leading up to it. JackeyLove never came online, and then it seemed like the rookies just got overwhelmed with time. Cream was the only one. Honestly, Cream had a fantastic tournament, and it will be kind of forgotten, but at least we are redeemed on that point where Cream, of course, did just fantastic. I think he did really good at this tournament, and he was the one keeping them in the game. It was the same against, of course, the LCP team, Team Secret Wales. But in terms of everything else, it's just that the Tian JackeyLove performance, JackeyLove said it himself in the interview where he said that, you know, the failure lies on the experienced players because they didn't do enough to help, you know, the newcomers. And I think that's, you know, the right takeaway from this, because they started as good as they can, but then MSI is always going to be the tournament where your experience gets measured the most. I expected G2 to win, and I expected some form of a collapse, but, you know, Top Esports find a way to make the predictable look so, you know, ingenious, in the sense that it's like, I could never expect this. You know, I could never expect a reverse sweep. It's like, what is the worst thing that can happen at Top Esports internationally, where we have very low expectations? Somehow they find a way to go under them even.
I mean, let's just start there. Like, first of all, I definitely agree. Sadly, the worst thing about this result isn't even that they came last place, last team. It's actually that now people will just add this to Cream's list of, like, he's an international bump. He played fucking great generally. Like, his actual baseline level in the wins and the losses was good. This guy, and what's sad is that's one of the things we did tell you from the LPL that was different about Top Esports. It's why I did let myself get tricked by this. Look, I obviously knew it was dangerous in terms of they have rookies, but I looked at this squad and I was like, you know what? I can't know actually how Tian and JackeyLove will play. They're the scary ones, obviously. But actually, I was fairly sure Cream would finally show a solid performance, because he's just been a different player this split. Like, he actually has, in the same way as I talk about Zeka and how he sort of earned my respect over the years, Cream's actually just become just a good fucking mid laner, like an actual true top LPL mid laner. And so I actually think, sadly, people will assume everyone sucked in this team and they're all shit. No, actually, I don't give him any blame. I even saw actually people were quite fair in those hoo-poo comments, the community ones from China. Like, actually, people were pointing out accurate. Even on game 5, it's like, mate, he couldn't do anything. He was in nightmare fucking drafting team. Like, there's nothing you could do with that team around you. The real sad thing is, like, JackeyLove, by the way, was shit in the whole thing. Sadly, I actually do think JackeyLove might be, considering he's someone who won Worlds, admittedly, I don't think he was the main star when they won Worlds. For someone who's won Worlds, he might actually be the biggest international choker ever. I think I'm willing to give him that title. Because people forget this, bro. Get me any of the other all-time chokers. And, like, for example, I think by the end of Khan's career, he'd sort of, like, gotten over it, and it was more like he choked the odd game. Remember, he usually used to lose, like, 5-game series back then. It wasn't he was getting swept. Even look at Peanut, mate. Peanut fucked around and, like, won first stand. It was the guy who was, like, having success in other times. Like, it's not like every time he choked, he was also fabulous domestically, and just it was mainly Worlds that was his problem. JackeyLove's the only one I've seen where, bro, he's choked at every international tournament now. Not as in literally, but every type that we have. Even with shit in that last first stand last year. Like, this guy, it's so bizarre, because I'm going to do a topic about this spoiler on, like, an upcoming Shut Up and Scale episode, Nightmare and Peter Dunn, because genuinely, I would struggle to think of anyone else who was ever this good at League of Legends, but also so bad internationally. Like, it boggles the mind, because, again, if people don't know, he still's really good in the LPL. Like, he's not the best handicap. He's really good, though. Like, he's still like a demon. So it's just absurd to me how bad he is. Because I do put a lot of the blame on him. Tian, obviously, because of the way the game was set up, he carried the first 2 games into worse than the Blabber one. That was worse than the Blabber fucking fighting over the Crab Boys, because he had like internet in the fucking tower. That was just so obviously just let it go, bro. This game, it's not, by the way, they were even leading in the game. You don't even need that Crab. That Crab doesn't even win you anything. But it did feel that began the reverse snowball. He was shit the rest of the games. And then I'm with you as well. I don't actually put much blame on the rookies. I thought generally they played fine. I actually think Zhuo and guys in a really tough spot. You're playing against some of the best top laners in the world in theory, and you're totally inexperienced. experience. I think the Fengyue guy was good. I'm with you. I actually think he's shown promise. One of the what the only fear I have for TS going forwards is this. I do think in teams, in the same way as people know if you have like a great captain or somebody who's really clutch, some of that can rub off on you. I actually worry that if you're rookies, like some of this shit rubs off on you when you start to just think like, this is what happens because I'm in TES. Like, I don't want them to get Fengyue and fucking Zhuo and them to think like, oh, we're TES and we're just choking with shit. I want them to think this is a one-off and forget about it. So it was worrying, I've got to say, because going forwards, like, T1 and Jackaloff on paper are supposed to be two of your best players. They sort of define the structure of the team. So at this point, you actually I have to ask this question, Yamato. It sounds mad, but would you kick any of these guys out of the team? Would you just say we have to get rid of them and start over? We have to get someone else? What do you think?
You know, the crazy thing to keep in mind, right, is that this roster wasn't meant to be, right? It's like Top Esports were in a freak situation where they needed to make some pivots, right? It's like we had the whole Nayu match fixing, 369 being mentally broken from it, and then they needed to restructure pretty much the whole team, bringing back Jackaloff and Tian.
Also doesn't help as well that established thing exists, Yamato, because what Tian did looks like win trading. It looks like he's fucking trying to give 2 games back, doesn't it? What the fuck? You've set yourself up for the meme there, TS. Like, I know he's not doing that, but Jesus, like, what are you doing?
It's simply terrible. No, that crab moment, it's gonna live on for such a long time.
It's so bad, isn't it? It's genuinely one of the worst stints I've ever seen, especially considering you carried the last 2 games. Like, you were looking awesome, you were just about to win. Come on.
Oh, it's like on the level of when like Will Smith walked up and like slapped Chris Rock, you know, at the awards, you know, like that was like, what the hell is happening? It's just, you know, it's breaking all boundaries of expectations. You sit there, you have to like rewind. It's like, did he really do this?
Oh my god!
And you know, something that we also need to add is like that Game 5 situation with, of course, them not knowing the rules of the swap.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. But bro, I can't believe how many maybe it's because of the Tian thing and the fact they're up 2-0. You're right. No one mentions that essentially this is on the coaching staff. One of the most criminal things about that series, if people don't know, is they didn't want that to be their jungle and support. They just forgot the rule that you have to do it within you can't do it when there's less than 30 seconds on the clock. And they just tried last minute to swap them around. And basically that's not what they would have picked. So essentially they not only entered 2 games and threw away 2-0 lead, they didn't even get to play game 5 essentially. Like, think how nuts that is to have the wrong support and jungler in a game 5. Because by the way, I can tell you right now, that's where that Fengyue guy got absolutely, in English you call it like get sold by your team. You fucked this guy. It's an international rookie. I agree, by the way. I had a pretty good showing aside from that. And you put my champion, he clearly doesn't play. And he looked really uncomfortable in that game, mate. Unsurprisingly. Yeah, what a fucking insane assignment.
No, it's like, it was the tricky thing, I think, in that spot was that there was 2 clear schools of thought where Maokai is better into Poppy, but if you put Maokai in jungle, your damage distribution is going to be very awkward. LYON and Pantheon is known as a combo, but in terms of how you need to set up the map, because of damage distribution not being outscaled on Mercs, you need to have Pantheon in the jungle. And I think this was just a case where they realized too late. I don't think they were trying to get a 1-up on G2 or they tried to cheat or anything. But you can see in the video, right, like on the footage, how Dylan Falco, how quick he is to react.
Yeah.
And instantly called the referees like, yo, you know, referee, they're breaking the law. And then instantly, I have never been in a situation where that has happened. Everyone is aware of the ruling of 20 seconds. I think this has been a case since like season 3 that you're not allowed to swap since 20 seconds. I think that there is some things to criticize about it because there's nothing inclined that blocks you from doing it. Because this is something that is a rule only in pro play, something that people...
Which is weird, because you could make the tournament realm so it locks you when you're at 20 seconds or whatever. Like, you could just make it so it's impossible, right?
And I think it's like something that is due to... I don't think it's necessarily due to like the gotcha thing, because for the longest time, like strong players and strong teams, what they would do, often what people would do in the past is like mismatch matchups and bait out runes. And what good teams would do is that they just have their top laner play mid and vice versa in order to, you know, leverage a double flex, which is obviously completely removed now because you're locked into your lane quest now. So that's removed from the equation. And I remember specifically this is something that came into the picture because of how it would fuck up with the broadcast graphics and the setup and behind. Because an additional thing that they don't want you to do is they don't want you to spam the random button that shows like different champions, because some players have that tick to just spam press champions. The referee instantly tells you stop doing that if you do it. So it's like about the the presentation of course the broadcast in order to make it more fluid. But because at some point, what they do is they cut away from the draft and stop showing the draft. It's not like it ticks down all the way to 0 seconds. They start to film the arena and it flows a little bit better. But the fact that it's not blocked in client does make it very, very unintuitive. But to the initial point, I do think that really, really screwed them over because, as you said, it's like Fengyue there on the Pantheon, didn't do his right combos, didn't have the right runes. He didn't look clean at all in terms of how he played. And that is like the worst way to start a game 5. And G2 at this point is a very, very experienced team. Like they have some of the most experienced players as a core. It's like G2's Hans Sama, Broken Blade, and Caps. It's like the only thing comparable to them really is like Genji's core and T1's core. Sure, you can also put BLG up there as well, but these are the usual suspects at internationals for a reason. So them being in that game 5, having the momentum, and then you just start the game with such a gut punch. It definitely, especially when you envision the game a certain way, and then you're pulled out of that immersion, and you need to kind of just catch up to the momentum of the game is a very tricky thing to do as a rookie. So the horror story for Top East just got worse and worse somehow.
No, I think it's nuts, bro. I mean, on that one as well, if people don't know, first of all, I'm amazed how many casuals are aware of that rule, bro. I saw people who were like, why is G2 complaining? It's like, that's actually a rule. Like, you just broke it. You literally, by the way, that's essentially cheating, whether you meant to do it or not. It just is. Like, there's a saying we have in English law, which is like, ignorance is no defense against the law. Like, if you do something that's illegal, it's illegal. True, your intent might not be punished as harsh if they thought that you did on purpose. But essentially, the reason why that rule exists is quite a good reason. Because if anyone's ever seen, I always used to think it was crazy back in the day, Yamato. Bear in mind, if you fuck up the draft, like don't pick in time, they don't like let you redo it. You just have to fuck up the game. Way back in the day in the original league, players, when it was only players and no coaches, used to wait till last second to lock the fucking pick in. They would hover like a million meme champions, and then 1 second would be left on the clock, and they'd lock in like the real pick. And yeah, 99.99999% of the time they always got it right. But every now and then, by the way, there were times when people fat fingered and picked the wrong one, or you had that bug where sometimes it picks the champion over from you in champs. That can happen. But here's what's crazy, right? Cause players used to do that, Yamato. This is why I agree with this rule existing. I think actually there are a decent amount of teams would try to wait, let both teams be there, so it's almost like 2 seconds left on the clock, and then quickly they'd swap 2 roles, knowing that the key thing here is this. It's not that they can't do it. It's that then the other team wouldn't have time to respond. And so then what would happen is, like you're saying, if you ever had like 2 good flexes where it did something good, you'd never be able to have a response to that. Whereas instead, the whole point of the 20-second rule is you can do that, but we still get 20 seconds. By the way, 20 seconds is not a long time if you've done a flex on me, but I'd still get 20 seconds to decide, like, right, do we want to flex something? Do we want to change something? Are we actually going to play these normal lanes? I think that's actually a reasonable rule, personally. Like, I've never heard anyone argue against that rule. It's a bad rule or it removes strategy. Like, I know in theory, fans are going to think on some anime shit, you should be able to do that at the last second, but I don't know that it would actually add to the game. To me, actually, League of Legends, especially in Fearless, is massively dictated by the draft. So I want the draft to be done properly by both teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think scoring points like this is kind of cheap. So I agree with the rule being in place. I think like getting advantages because people have the wrong runes and playing such a, I don't know, it's such an empty game. I don't think it exposes any level of skill and just adds complexity for no reason.
Yes.
And I think that it just removes the immersion from a fan. I think with League,
by the way, the thing you said about runes is also key. Look, 20 seconds isn't long, but if I'm really quick and I have to do a flex, I could probably find the runes in time and get the basic rune tree done. But if I have 2 seconds, I can't do it. I definitely can't do that. If I'm a jungler who's never played that champ, there's no chance I have those runes installed. No way.
100%. It's like I think plain and simple. In the past, it was something that was abused a lot, and now with the quest introduction, there is very little flexibility to it.
Yes.
But now I do think for the average viewer, for them to sit there and be like, oh, is there a swap gonna happen, and just sit there in suspense, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And as mentioned before, like in terms of the broadcast, It's like they want to have arena shots in that moment. They want to see player reaction in that moment. They want to have a proper introduction to the game and not just wait the champion select to take down till the final seconds. Because we've had those awkward moments where it's like, oh, did they swap? Oh, they didn't swap. Did they actually swap? Let's find out when we go into the game if they swapped or not. And it's like, yo,
Yes.
just definitely ruins the immersion of the game.
Oh, here's the thing then. Just like MSI, let's get TS the fuck out of here. Bro, I want to see what you're going to say. Well, what happened against Team Secret Wales? That was an inconceivable one to look. Because as I say, mate, you could still cope after the G2 series and be like, look, if TN doesn't fuck around, we maybe win the series anyway. Also, the game 5, look, we didn't do the draft right. But mate, the Team Secret Wales, they just outright fucking got rocked. They just got their shit pushed in.
It was such a confidence test because like Team Secret Wales, honestly, you know, shout out to Vestion. He told us to watch Mr. Big Pun himself and Histo the jungler, and they popped off completely.
Yeah.
It's like Team Secret Wales came in with a very, very clear identity in terms of how they drafted and how they picked. And I do think in this series in particular, that's where you saw, you know, the kind of the pain of the reverse sweep showing through in the rookies. Because this was, in comparison to the first series against G2, I did feel like Fengyue and also Zhuo had a horror one, especially with the opening, getting solo killed as a Jason to Olaf at minute 4. That's such a decisive matchup that is going to decide the whole game because the compositions were so polarizing, where you had Tobias was playing a very poke-heavy composition, and then, of course, you have the enemy team just going very, very skirmish and engage heavy. And I feel like Team Secret Wales just stuck to their guns. And the issue for me with Tobias was at this point, it was very clear that they don't have the confidence to execute. But in that moment, the drafts that they were playing regionally in the LPL, like their biggest strength was that they had just such a wide range of champions they could actually execute on and play and composition that they could play. But the issue with that and why most teams don't do it is that it has complexity. But I think that their state of mind was not in the place at all where they could play anything complex, whether it was poke compositions or like mages around mid. They needed to kind of match top Team Secret Wales where they were in terms of just playing skirmish heavy comps and fight heavy comps, but they just didn't do it. And I do think that Tobias' fragility there kind of was a problem. I do think that Tian and Jackilov tried to play together with Cream as the series progressed, but it was just far too late. And I think that they lost, the confidence of the rookies in the matchup. While on the other side, Team Secret Wales, they didn't skip a beat. Like if something went wrong, they just didn't care. They just moved on to the next play very, very quick. And the top lane gap was just too massive in this series because they've always found like the pick that would break the enemy apart. So fair play. Honestly, Team Secret Wales, like even the matchup against LYON, the one that they have coming up, like I'm kind of excited for that one because on one side there was a Tobias with a collapse, but Team Secret Wales actually, they had a very clear identity and executed on that super nicely.
No, I also think the most unforgivable thing about TS in the Team Secret Wales one is if you just take the nameplates off, they just flat out got outplayed across the board.
Yeah.
That's what was so sad. Like, and if you even look at it, the reason why, like, look, I agree with you. I think you could even make a case for the rookies. They've just had their mental completely rocked. Like, I'm sure they had remember, I always give this example to people. The reason why I think people in football, for example, still join legendary teams who haven't done that well recently is because you don't associate yourself with the failures they've had recently. You think, well, no, when I join, I'm going to become a Manchester United legend. I'm going to become a Barcelona legend. When I come, I'm good. So when I come in, there's only been that shit. And in fact, I'm going to make my name here. We're going to be back on top. So I agree with you that I can't even imagine what their mental state must have been going into that series when they thought they were going to beat G2. And then also, the reason why I have to put the blame on the veterans is, mate, Jackilov wasn't even on some like weird meta with these are all the champions he was winning on the LPL. All the shit he was playing here, Ash, Ziggs, fucking Yamato. He was playing all that in the LPL and loving it. He was fucking looking awesome. So he just has no one to blame but the guy in the mirror, mate. Like, it's just, I mean, I would have even said don't take splits off, but he managed to get to the fucking LPL finals doing it. Like, apparently that was no problem. So I said it earlier. Look, it'll be something for other content to Izami historically, but he is just going to go down as one of the all-time greatest chokers internationally, sadly, which is really sad because his actual skill profile was extremely good. Like, if anyone's a Westerner who loved players like fucking forgiven, double lift. You'd love this guy. It's fucking dope. I mean, the joke is, Kazi, you'll even admit, Kazi basically leveled this game up a few years ago by just copying Jackie Love's style of play in the LPL, that like super aggressive ADC style where you just go in the center of the fight and you just sort of matrix your way around everyone and just hit as much damage as you can. Sadly, if you're an international fan, I don't blame you anymore if you hate on Jackie Love. You never get to see it. You get to see the odd group stage, Swiss stage game maybe, where he has like what a BO1 where he looks good. But in the series play, the BO5, it's right, he's never done it. And if you go back in time, I'm sorry, Jackie Love, this is why people used to think I was a Jackie Love hater. Because yes, he won Worlds on a team that is notorious for the fact that the solo laners gapped everyone, and his fucking jungler won the MVP in the finals for having the meta down. Like, bro, listen, you were more important than Bowland, but that makes you 4th place on that team, homie. Like, chill on that one. You have to do it. I'm sorry, I do think if you're a great player and you want to take those titles, you have to do them when you're the man. You know what I mean? When he, unfortunately, on the teams he was on where he was the man and they played through him, he had a lot of bad performances. So whatever. I think we'd be fair putting it up there. Also, I agree with you. This is one of the reasons why me and Monty years ago started doing these episodes where we get people like Vesti on or people who watch smaller regions on. Because every now and then they'll actually have, it's actually how we found Nymera, if people don't know. We originally brought Nymera on, think back to 2021, to watch shit like what's going on with this DFM team that's beating fucking Cloud. That was the whole point, was to get that insight. And then later you find out not only are the odd teams in small regions are good, but also sometimes those people are good analysts and they can expand beyond that and talk about the other regions. So it's kind of cool. I agree. I part of me thought the same thing, Yamato. I thought to myself, well, the problem for him is there's no CF4 anymore, so who gives a shit? Like, it doesn't matter, mate. It actually turns out, if anything, Team Secret Wales, normally we only think you can do bullshit BO1 upsets if you're from Vietnam. This is a fucking BO5 they just won, bro. And how are you? As of right now, certainly, I actually thought LYON did a decent job against BLG, some of the players. But even so, there are holes in their game, mate. Like, I actually think this could be a close one against this Team Secret Wales. I want to see it. I'm not going to write Team Secret Wales off completely. I could see this being like a 5-game, 4-game series. It's really intense. So, especially because, mate, they've got that top player there, like that top player guy. I want to see how he does in a big dorks. Let's see. Let's see how it fucking plays out. The jungle angle's obviously spicy too, because it's not like Inspired's getting a cakewalk. That guy actually has hands. This Histo guy's not bad. So, no, I'm with you. Anyway, fuck TES. We'll put them to one side. Let's talk about some high-level League of Legends now, Yamato. So, obviously, we discussed it last episode, what could end up being the final. Already happened in round 1, BLG versus T1, and it delivered the 5-game banger. I even did think as well, as much as it's a 5-game series, I don't actually know if you're T1, if you can bitch much about that one. Like, mate, you could have actually lost in less than 5 games. Like, even one of those games that you won the first one was like, fucking BLG was right up your ass on that, mate. That was really close. So I actually thought BLG in general just showed the strength of their fucking roster, mate. Like, they have some really, really strong, and a lot of the things people were hoping for who were analysts seemed like they came true, Yamato. Like, you know what? Actually, On did match carrier. That's one of the few times I've ever seen anyone do it. Like, and actually, if you want to look at the series, I think you could argue the Zhuo On angle. That is one of the only combos of jungler support that can fuck with T1s, and they did. Like, they actually had a pretty good series. So, what do you think of this series? It was a great series for me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think in terms of some of the notes that we've hit, right, the Zhuo and On one 100% came true, right? Like, I do think that this was one of the weakest best of 5s we've seen from the T1 duo in Kerrian and of course Oner. Like, I think that they got outperformed here. Another detail that we always mentioned was just BOG in this series, like in terms of prep work. I have never been in a position where I'm like, BLG is a really strong drafting team.
No.
You need to be scared of this aspect of them. That has never been true with BLG. They always pick like champions that they're really good on, and then you're like, oh, I like this guy on Jax. I like this guy on Ari. It doesn't make sense on paper. Similar to how they drafted against LYON. Like that game 3 draft is on paper terrible. Like they get outskilled there and whatever, but then it's like you're picking Ari into Castiel. It's a terrible matchup, but we're sitting and thinking there, it's these nameplates on these champions are going to get away with it. That's a story of BLG. But in this series, Danny just really cooked. He really found interesting angles. I think that in majority of the games, they had way better reads than, of course, T1. We had the Vel'Koz angle. We had also, just the fact that T1 are unaware of Knight and, of course, Shun, their signature champions being Syndra and Kindred coming into the game 5, with the Trundle blind pick. Like
Yeah.
T1 was completely lost on the map in terms of their drafting, and BOG was just really, really tapped in. I think also something that really, really tells me the story of how, this team is actually coached for the first time since Tabe's era is the fact that in game 5, Bin, after having that Gwen game, where it looked like he was so mad the way he played. Like he got ahead, he solo killed, he was 30 CS ahead on Gwen, and then he sees as his bot lane is just collapsing and dying. And then every engage that Bin took throughout the game just looked like he was tilted off the planet. To then come into game 5 and play Rumble and not play aggressive at all and not look to find any leads in the matchup, go down 20 CS to make sure to never die, where Bin basically played the role of like 369 on the team. To do that after the game 4, to me, knowing how Bin is as a player in terms of how he represents his personality in the game, I do think that was just, damn, that was just amazing to me, the fact that they managed to pull that off between the games. But BOG's strategic work here was amazing, while on T1 side, it's like if we go into a series, and the first 3 supports that Keria is going to be playing is Nautilus, Camille over Bard. I understand people like his Camille, but Bard was available. That's the crucial detail.
Yes.
Bard was available, and this is something that he first picked over everything else. And then a third game where he picks Leona. I don't remember the last time I saw Keria play Leona. Like, I remember it like in 24 when Warmog's armor was the meta, and Keria actually looked weak in the summer split leading up to that World Championship. That's the last time I remember his Leona
Yes.
in significant moments. So that preparation, I always kind of set it up in a way. It's like T1 going to lean into their own strengths, or are they going to conform? Because now we have a situation where the AP carries bot lane are so damn strong, which of course removes T1 from their biggest strength and the biggest identity, which is playing through bot lane. If you have mages in the bot lane, that's not what you want to do. Sure, you can do it with the Pyke and Mel like they did in that game. It's like finally Keria picks his own champ, and we can see him like bending the game to his will completely on the Pyke. But other than that, we just saw a version of Keria that was conforming to the meta and was just kind of playing catch up to On in this series, because On was way sharper. So many confusing things that T1 did, not only the support role, but the blind pick Trundle was one of the most egregious things ever. We also saw the blind pick Zahen with Wukong to invite Bin Jax out of all things. It was truly, truly just terrible. The Swain Renekton angle. It's like if your opening is Lee Sin, Camille, Ambessa, Renekton counters all 3 of those champions in terms of what class of a champion he is. And then you add to that by blind picking Galio, giving, of course, Knight a very, very nice Swain angle. The Swain angle I can't fault them for, because Swain was mostly played in the LPL back in 25. But still, the fact that BOG kept their hand on the pulse and actually leverage how big champion pools these guys have, because BOG have by far the biggest champion pools out of anybody out there.
Yes.
People are going to mention Keria, but On plays more. Like On plays more goofy shit when ADCs are removed from the support pool. And Viper as well. He played all the AP carries back in
He played the
2018.
Velcros here, bro. It was dope. It was pretty good, actually.
Was fantastic. And I'm happy that we finally see a coach actually putting that to use.
Yeah.
Actually putting that to use and leveraging that. So once
Doesn't
again,
it make you think, Yamato? One of the funny things is, I always say, sports is the ultimate one if you have any history. In football, you can't actually say because a manager failed, he's a bad manager. Sometimes they just have the wrong team. Like, they've got the wrong personnel, the wrong style for what they want to do. Mate, I've actually memed on the Danny guy myself back in the day when he was in T1. He was notorious for being a bad drafter back then. He was doing it on Dam 1. People thought he was a bit sauce. Bro, he actually looks like, unironically, the best BLG coach. Like, somehow he fits the personality. And as you say, the drafting's really good now.
I have to say, like, I gave him the nickname, the Ego Wrangler. He just give him the biggest egos in the sport, and he will make it work. That's what you gotta give him. You gotta have
he's killed it.
big egos, big players, because it's like his last success was taking a really strange Weibo roster all the way to the finals of the World Championship. And that, of course, was a team that had the Shy, and we were thinking to ourselves, like, what? How is the Shy playing disciplined? How is the Shy playing so well? He's just finds a way to tap into the big egos. It seems you just have to give him those players, and you can make it work. I don't know if Danny, when he was in T1, he had that stint. Maybe that was him trying to do some ego wrangling, but then, T1 stepped in. It's like, yo, you can't be benching Faker, brother. Just get out of here. It's time to leave.
Oh, I'm also with you as well. I just think in general, this is the reason why I personally do and did pick BLG as my team to win MSI. I actually think their hands, when they all turn up like this, it's really hard to beat a team like this. It's actually one of the people notice is one of my favorite things about the LPL is they have so much talent that if they ever build super teams, bro, the hype is just in the roster, mate, before you even click a button. And as you saw in these games, like I said, in game one, by the way, in the 2 games they lost, in game one, it was just a knife edge. Whoever won that big fight was going to win the game. And even the one they were losing quite heavily in game 4, bro, they were so far behind in gold and like levels and kills, but they were still in every fight. Like the hands are just too good. It's why even though I joked that like part of me's worried that Zhuo said after they lost to G2 in game 1 in the first hand fight, like just outplay them with your hands. That sounds stupid, except if you actually have hands like these, you can do it. And then as we pointed out, they're not just actually like last year just randoming anything in draft and playing. But first of all, Zhuo is way better than Peyz. And secondly, the drafts now are good. They used to have some sauce fucking drafts the past years where they were lost in the sauce and failures. Like they actually look really strong now, as you say. Viper actually, if people don't know, Viper was the original AD carry back when you had to play those mages. That was one of the only traditional AD carries to actually embrace it and try playing them all, etc. So that's why it's actually dope that they're able to bring it out when he's not in best form at the moment. But what a cool Vel'Koz angle that is. How many people would pull that out in a big series against a team of the level of T1? I thought that was dope. And then actually the On one is baller because I've myself criticized On many times internationally, precisely because for me, he doesn't deliver internationally like a Carrier does. Bro, how dope is this? Think about what I said on the last episode. Carrier tricks everyone into playing champions like Camille, Bard, and it's like, you ain't Carrier, bro. He's the closest thing we got. He even played the Bard into the fucking Camille, and it looked really good. Like, I actually thought On had a great set. This is like a statement series for me to him. So, if you were someone who believed BLG could win the tournament, I think you've been so far, it was correct. It's justified. Still was a great series, though. I think T1 also. Like, what's funny is if we flip it to the T1 side, I'll tell you one thing that I actually thought was mildly slept on in this series, right? Knight was better than Faker, but I tell you what, Faker had a couple of games where he made some nice plays, bro. I thought that solo kill was pretty nice. Like, he had a couple of moments when he was in the match and he could make a bit of playmaking. Like, I was very worried coming into MSI that actually Faker looked cooked in the LCK. He looked like unironically. That's why we had that ENC discussion, bro. He wasn't even a top 3 mid in the fucking LCK. That's not even being harsh. Like, if I just immediately take like BDD, Zeka, and Chovy, I don't even need to talk about Faker. They're all better than him. But actually, he showed me some signs in this series. Like, I don't know that T1 could win this tournament. I actually think they might have drafting issues, but they're still going to be competitive, though. They should at minimum be 3rd, and I actually think they got a chance to make the final. I think it was. I still saw enough from T1 to make me interested. Put it that way.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that where T1 was flawed are places where it can get better, and where they showed strength are places where we kind of expected weakness. Because even from Doran's side, outside of the Kisante game where they did in fact win, he actually held his own. Like I don't think that he was getting cracked completely.
No,
He
no.
wasn't a big liability. And on top of that as well, as you mentioned, it's like Faker was performing super well. That Casio game, some of the angles he found in terms of the traps he made,
Yeah.
find the petrifying.
He was the main
gazes,
reason
one
they
on
won that
Poppy.
game.
Yeah, like that was such a big comeback swing where
Yes.
shit, I dropped something, but it's okay. That's why I did the sound. He found the trap on Poppy there by just plain intuition and read in terms of what he expected the Poppy path to be. And I do agree with you that Faker looked very good in this series. And I think that in terms of where you want T1 to make improvements, it's like you want Oner and Keria to perform at their highest level, which is something that they shift in and out of from day to day, from week to week, from even game to game. So that's something definitely that they can step up on. And also a lot of the draft mistakes that they did here, T1's biggest strength in the past has always been like adapting mid-tournament. Maybe they come into the next game and suddenly just drop all of these supports that they felt forced to lock in. Maybe they just have a completely different identity where they just slam full bot lane 1-2 to make sure that they are more competitive and actually make bot lane very volatile to kind of enforce their style. I would be very surprised if they come into a series with the same kind of read, because they definitely played BLG's game and not Keria's game at all. This was the big question mark, but I do have concerns in the fact that we have so many AP bot lanes coming up. We saw Vel'Koz here. We see glimpses of Syndra. We see Cassio being flexed as well. We see, of course, Ziggs. The playstyle of playing through mid and activating your support to roam seems to be the one dominant. So T1 will have to make one of those gut calls we've seen them do in the past. Mid-tournament where, at the World Championship, it was like, oh, they just got stomped against Genji trying to play Alistar Kaiser, and they just lost on side because they couldn't defend and they just couldn't keep up in the support roaming game. And then they just pivot and play like Pyke, Rakan, Bard only just to play a roaming game so the jungle can, of course, farm as much as possible. T1 need to make such a transformation in order for them to be even considered winning, because obviously right now BOG and HLE also looks very, very scary, and T1 need to make some shifts that they've been able to do in the past. So it's not completely out of the question.
Right, since obviously T1's other match was the one against FURIA, who most people don't really give a shit about. Let's just talk about FURIA for a moment, because I'll tell you what, this is one of those teams where, because I do shows with Peter Dunn, if people don't know, Peter Dunn himself not only coached in Brazil, he actually coached the INTZ team that won a game off EDG at 2016 Worlds, if people don't know, but also he has an affection for that region, like he actually cares about how those players play. So one of the things I'll tell you is, he always bigs up on FURIA, that jungler player, Tattoo. And mate, if you watch this tournament, you can see why. Like, he was in games where his team's completely getting gapped and should lose, and he looked fucking good. Like, when I think about the fact Jose Diodo was like an MVP candidate in LCS, bro, why is no one trying to import? This guy's young as well. He's like a young jungler who's got like that swagger. He's got fucking hands. And if you saw that Nasus game, sure, he maybe misplayed it a little bit, but like, bro, this is an exciting player. Like, I'm not a massive FURIA fan. I think people, as usual, pick too many players to be good, but this player has potential. Like, I was interested in this guy, mate.
Agreed, yeah. Like, especially in a pool of junglers that are so damn strong, to be able to find ways to stand out. Fair play. I do think that they looked a lot more comfortable and a lot more loose than they did against LYON, and the level that they showed on the day against T1. If they brought more of that into the series against LYON, I think that LYON series could have maybe
Yes.
looked different, because it did seem when they played against LYON specifically that they kind of lost how to progress the game in the mid to late game. And I do think that the scrappiness of T1 is something that they are more comfortable in. But if you're in a situation where you walk away knowing that at certain points you as a team, you've managed to out team fight T1, that just speaks to how mechanically good you are, because they managed to win fights while being at a goal disadvantage. And I think it
Yes.
just speaks to the whole identity of this team, where whenever we saw them internationally, they were always performing really, really well on an individual level. And then it was always so surprising how they didn't make it again. It's like we saw them at MSI, and then it's like coming into the World Champions, like they're not here. How's that even possible? It's like, and then we see the teams that replace them, and we
Yep.
see how lackluster they would be.
Yes.
And I hope we get to see like a long period of FURIA
Yes,
dominance
agreed.
in the CBLOL, so we actually get to see them more and more international,
Yes.
because I think there is something to build on here. And if it's going to be another LCP situation where they're going to lose their best players, that can happen too.
Yes.
But I hope FURIA does everything they can to keep him. Maybe.
No, I'm with you. What you're basically saying about CBLOL, I'll give people, the problem is that people are going to think of LEC, and obviously G2 is not only the best LEC team, they're the best international team from LEC, but if people are old school enough, if you go back in time 10 years ago, even though TSM used to routinely get the better of Cloud9 in NA, Cloud9 was always the better team internationally, though, so you always wanted Cloud9 to be there at Worlds, MSI, etc., because they were the team that had a chance for something. I'm with you. One of the most bizarre things is, every time I've seen FURIA internationally, obviously they've played some of those tournaments where you just play NA, they've looked really good. But then bizarrely, you go, because I don't watch CBLOL, I'm with you. Sometimes it comes to Worlds, and I'm like, what the fuck? They don't even win their region. But this other team sucks when I watch them. I'm with you. I actually just hope if that guy doesn't get imported, Tattoo, then I hope we just see them at all the international tournaments, because at least they can fit that sort of, funnily enough, what like a Team Secret Wales. They can be like a spicy underdog team that at least a minimum threatens the Western teams. And actually, every now and then, maybe you can steal a game off a big team too. I actually thought generally what a good showing they've given themselves. Right, okay, Yamato. What about if I wanted to upgrade my lifestyle? Do you have any ideas on what I could do?
Honestly, there's something very simple that you can do. Regardless of where you are, whether you're at the beach, during summer you're on vacation, or if you're just at home and you are waking up for early MSIs, something to keep you sturdy, regardless of how your habits need to change due to your circumstance. Something to keep you sturdy is AG1. Takes you 30 seconds, 1 scoop plus 8 ounces of water. I'm using ounces for some reason every morning. Very easy way to, start your day with a good decision. And good decisions tend to snowball into even better things. AG1 helps to maintain energy, supports gut health, and support immune health. AG1 is clinically shown to support gut health and fill in, of course, common nutrient gaps. It's hard to make sure that all of the nutrition is covered with the stresses of day to day. Making sure that your floor is goddamn high, regardless of what you eat on the day. Sometimes when you travel, it's very difficult. We've been on events, and sometimes the food that you get offered, sometimes you even don't get to eat. Sometimes, you don't get food at all because catering is gone, and sometimes the catering is off, and sometimes you feel like, the food that you are eating there might challenge your health. And to make sure making sure that everything you have, your nutrients and your vitamins, makes the baseline for everything that you might face in the day to day just so much stronger. I use it every day. I can feel it when I don't. I've had moments where I forget. That's the only that's the only thing that you need to do. You got to keep it with you.
Yes.
I've had periods where I forgot when I traveled, and you can kind of feel it, and then it's like you're on those events. I was most recently in Utrecht, and I was there for 6 days for a Riftbound event. I traveled, and then I stayed at a friend's place. And when you're traveling, it's like the day ends with eating like 2 a.m. fast food, and you just feel the snowball of all the bad decisions. And I just wish there was something there to, of course, keep me anchored. So, if you're forgetful, that could be the only pain point, but just write a note on your hand or something, just keep it in your mind. So with that being said, visit drinkag1.com/summoning to get free AG1 travel case with 7 free AG1 travel packs in your welcome kit with your first AG1 subscription order while supplies, of course, last. That's drinkag1.com/summoning, drinkag1.com/summoning.
I would even say if you're someone like that, because I know what you mean. I actually like to do things where if I know I have a weak spot, I get ahead of it. Like, for example, if I have certain drink I drink in the morning, I'll make it at the end of the day. I'll make it at the end of the day and put it in the fridge, and it's the first thing I see when I open it. So similarly, if you have a problem like that, just put the little packet. It comes in a little packet, you put in water. Just put it on the edge of the counter or something at the end of the night. Then when you wake up in the morning, you go for your breakfast, you'll see it there. You'll remember every day to make it part of your routine. Okay, right. Let's do the other side of that then. So before we get to the big dogs, I do want to talk about like the BLG versus HLE game, how HLE's done. Let's talk a little bit about LYON, because obviously coming in, they did get an absurdly on paper easy bracket because they got to play FURIA in the opener, whereas BLG played T1. So they beat FURIA, as we say, but it was closer than people think. Even though it was a 3-0, there was definitely a lot of play in a couple of those games. Then they went against BLG. By the way, I'll say the same thing about BLG. It was a much closer series than a 3-0 looks like. Like, I do think actually, like game 1, for example, I think actually LYON was even doing well at that one. Like, they actually showed some signs. The problem is, a lot of how I looked at the LYON BLG series was, holy fuck, does BLG have hands, mate? Because they were behind in these games. I even agree with you. The game 3 draft was almost like, let's just set ourselves a challenge for, can you even win this game? And somehow they did. Like, they're just that cracked out. So, but on the side of LYON though, here's what's weird. I don't want it to be, again, because as pointed out, I saw this stat online. Apparently it only is G2 since 2019 that's even beaten an Asian team in a BO5. So even though, yes, inspired on FlyQuest almost did it, and Team Liquid's had a bunch of times a couple of years ago where they were pretty close, no one actually does do it. So part of me hesitates to say, let's take moral victories from getting beaten 3-0. But at the same time, bear in mind, BLG in a week from now, mate, might have won the fucking tournament. It might be like on the golden road to the greatest team ever. I do think there was some things you could take from that series, though, and think that's positive. Like, there was some good signs there. Actually, Saint even had a couple of moments that were good. Berserker had the odd moment. What do you make of this LYON team, Yamato? Where's your expectations? Have they exceeded it? What do you think so far?
I do think that in regards to what they showed against BOG, the fact that they were willing to swing, I think, is a big plus. I thought that Isles had a solid series. The fact that they were willing to take fights and actually to take opportunities is a very, very different LYON than what we've seen. They went through the entire LCS by just waiting and choosing their opportunities. And of course, against Blabber, just fighting early in the invades to kind of disrupt Blabber. They were always a team that catered themselves to their opponent, and I thought that they could never possibly do that or try to attempt to do that against a BOG. But here they actually tried. They tried to keep up with the punches. They actually tried to punish, the aggression of BOG, and they didn't passively lose. So for me, that's a big plus. I think that the underperformers in the first series were definitely stepping up, because in the first series against FURIA, that was only Inspired and Berserker playing. Like Saint looked bad. I think the Dokla looked even worse, and then Isles had a horror series. And slowly we're getting to the point where all 5 LYON players are actually playing. Now they're missing a top laner, so that's still something that you know, they need to shore up on, and put a potential weakness against, of course, Mr. Big Pun from Little Italy. Like in terms of you know, them actually having a performance, I think fair play. But on the other side, I'm not as excited as other people are, but being close against BOG, because BOG is exactly the type of team that you know, just matches their performance to who you are. I don't think BOG gave 10 damns about
No, no.
who this team is. Like, they didn't care about LYON, and it seemed like you know, I don't know if you know about that the Bogdanov brothers meme. That was like at a certain point in the game they just said dump it, and then they just decided to win.
Right.
It was always like a switch, you know. It's like that fight that was leading into the soul, and then you just see like how clean they are in terms of a team fight. It seemed like they could always kind of stop themselves and say, you know what, guys, we're getting to the point where it's unwinnable. Let's kick it up a notch. And that's where I do think that LYON definitely like fell apart, because even though on paper LYON was in winning positions, it never felt like BLG were, you know, out of control of the game. And I think that's the crucial thing. It kind of reminds me how T1 was in play-ins. It's like T1 had some leads where they lost, but you had to kind of beat them 15 times in the same game to beat them, because they'll be able to out-team fight you in the fight that decides the game with ease. And I do think that, if anything, I was kind of disappointed by Berserker in this series, because I do think that Berserker, you know, in terms of you know, coming to an international and showcasing like that he's not just a big fish in a small pond. This is one of those opportunities where he had game states where actually he should have been the weapon. He should have been the danger. We mentioned his game 3 draft. Like, he was 6 items severe and he got dry barred ulted. And those are those moments that I think define you, whether you're going to break through and be an elite, or if you're going to be, as I mentioned, a big fish in a small pond. Because obviously in LCS, you are rocking things and you're dominating and you get away with everything because you execute well. But this was one of those cities where I think he could have been a difference maker and actually made a name for himself, because now the whole moniker of his career, where he dominates in the LCS and went back to the LCK and was just an average ADC, and then went back and dominated, it kind of like cements him into that spot where you know, we might not be able to ever see a world where Berserker is going to rise up through the ranks. Maybe this is just what he's destined to be.
No, I'm with you. The reason why I don't want to go too far, even though I'll certainly say they weren't like just total shit. Like, by the way, I'm with you. I like the style. Like, I like the way they were doing all the tower dives and going for it and sending it. Even when they were doing like actually what Asians do, you do the gamble where they didn't get out on all of them. There was that one where Saint died to the tower. That's cool though. I like that you mix it up. You go for it. If you'd have lived on the tiny bit and gone, haha, calculate, we'd all be saying how legendary that was. That'd be dope. The problem is, like, if you just look at the rosters, you're never supposed to be able to beat BLG. Come on, bro. You have Dokla, who isn't even supposed to be your top laner. I know there was that recent drama where now the Castle guy isn't even going to be on the team. You never ever wanted this guy as your top laner. It's just he keeps getting away with it, and somehow he keeps doing it domestically. So fair play to Dokla, but he is nowhere close to being. And then yeah, the Isles one I have to bring up, mate, because we're comparing Isles to. We're saying On might be better than Carrier. He fucking is so far ahead of Isles, it's crazy. Like, first of all, Isles, don't pick fucking Pyke again, mate. You're banned from that champion. You ain't carrying on. That was terrible, mate. That was a bad pick. And then also, on the game 3, if you want to know how powerful BLG is, bro, I don't even think many teams, if you took the nameplates off and said to them, this is the scenario you're in, would even think it was possible to win that team fight, mate. You are so outscaled. All their carries are online. Now, true, if people go back and watch the team fight again, you had blown some of the flashes before the fight. So, like, Cassio's in a pretty hard spot, for example. But even so, mate, you're supposed to walk through that fight. And BLG not only won it, it was like clean. They just clapped them completely.
5-0 ace.
Like, if anything, it's not even lying that that's a message to. If I'm fucking Animal Life and I'm watching that series, it's like, Jesus Christ. What are these guys just got like Terminator hands or something? This is ridiculous. Like, they can't lose. So, like, if anything, even though, yes, props to the line for some decent games, BLG must just feel like this is our tournament. It's destiny. Of course we're going to win this shit. Like, even when we draft terribly and we're behind the game, we still win. Like, that's too easy, mate. That's way too easy. That was shocking to me how easy that was. But again, I don't know what you can say beyond that. LYON obviously did what they could do. Now, as we said earlier, though, do you have the balls to do it? Technically, if they actually have flaws in their game, they do. They have some. Mate, I'll tell you the obvious one I'm thinking of right now. If the top laner of Team Secret Wales really can smurf, that's an angle you can attack on LYON. That's a real chance. If the jungler Tata has great hands, that can potentially block some more in spider. Suddenly I'm interested in this Team Secret Wales, but I would have been cynical, bro, and just said LYON probably even 3-0s or 3-1s. Like, I think this is going to be an interesting series. I'm sort of into it.
No, I'm with you. I think it's very intriguing. I would still favor LYON. I wouldn't jump so far. Maybe, you know, the lack of context in my mind about Team Secret Wales from how they played regionally in their competition. Maybe if I had stronger conviction there and I had like a, you know, bigger kind of canvas to be working with in what they are. Because the takeaways from what they did against Top Esports also shows the dimension of their play. And I think LYON is always very comfortable against teams that are very specific. And I don't think that Team Secret Wales is going to be that much better mechanically for them to kind of, you know, just override them. But if LYON, for example, play like they did against FURIA, where you have a Saint that is underperforming, a Isles that is underperforming, and a Dokla that is underperforming, I see Team Secret Wales smoking them, because I do think that they're just, their biggest strength is that they're firing off on all cylinders and they're all really bought into what they're doing in the game. And I really like from Team Secret Wales that they were capable of actually, you know, pivoting to a matchup bot lane that was centered around snowballing and letting Histo play a more scaling game. So even though I think that they are very balls to the walls, fight, they have some dimension there. And in a world where I give a lot of props to coaches, we have to also highlight Team Secret Wales. They got Warhorse. That's a world champion right there. He was
Absolutely.
an FPX and he's had a lot of, you know, time,
Yeah.
of course, in the LPO as a coach. And I do think that in terms of their meta read and their draft read, it's been very sharp. And I think that if you come into the day on Fearless and you have strong confidence and strong preparation, I can definitely see a world where the differences that I think should be the benefit for LYON quickly be diminished. I think that draft and preparation is such an important thing now in Fearless, and especially in this meta, that it can shift completely. And in a world where we think, of course, the importance of Berserker, you can definitely draft in a way where the importance of ADC is going to be lessened because of the things that we mentioned before. You can definitely create an environment where Berserker has a very small role in these games. And then if that happens and it becomes a topside heavy game, will then Team Secret Wales just be able to walk over Dokla and win the game? Those are the big questions for me. But I think my gut call is like 52, 55 maybe in LYON's favor. Just because of their ability to shape themselves against their opponent.
I'm with you on the Warhorse angle, though, because I always think in League, one thing that interests me is when you have coaches that have been successful in the biggest divisions come to the smaller regions and smaller teams. Because if people don't know, that was one of the things topical since the World Cup's on right now. One of the things that actually changed international football forever was when people stopped it being that the coach of the manager of the team had to be from the same country. And so all of a sudden you got sometimes even big countries, but a lot of the smaller ones, specifically the Asian countries did this. I know they got like European managers who knew how to play and how to train and how to work with the modern tactics. And that was one of the things that leveled some of these countries up. And it's why, actually, if you watch the World Cup today, even when on paper it looks ridiculous, these are way more competitive games than they ever were 20 years ago, Yamato. Like, I can tell you, when I was a boy, you could essentially pick like 10 teams and they would never ever lose to anyone else at the World Cup except each other. They could, you know, Germany could only lose to Italy, to France. You could never, there was no world you would ever lose to like a Korea or an African nation. That's different now. So actually, I'm with you. That is a real angle. You have got a world champion, an LPL champion coach on your team. So even though your players to us are nobodies, you've got someone who understands how to work with people. He's also worked internationally before and done drafts, I imagine, as well. It means he has contacts in the LPL and probably even get you the odd scrim at the tournament. Like, these things have got crazy value, even though he doesn't get to click the buttons himself. And also, actually, I do think if you look at them as a team, I do think it's actually like slightly underrated that when they go against LYON, the fact that LYON is the champion of LCS, as we've said before, in part was because LCS was weak and because people like LYON fell apart in the playoffs. It wasn't that LYON was like a 10 out of 10. They weren't even dominant in the regular seasons in the LCS. So I actually think that I'm with you. I'll still side with LYON. I still think Inspired is far away the best player in the server and should get it all done. And actually, there's even a great example of a series where having just a better jungler can win you the series. But I really respect some of the hands on Team Secret Worlds. Let's see what Warhorse comes with. If he comes with an interesting draft approach, maybe there's a chance to make it a spicy game. No, I'm with you. And that could even happen. Right, okay. What about this then, boys? So, put the camera on me for a second. We have got Polymarket back. And since Polymarket is back, we're going to pick out, I've got a game for you here, and then later on the show, I'll do a different one. But one of the games I've obviously picked out is in a couple of days, we have the upper bracket final. We have BLG, #1 seed from LPL, against Hanwha Life Esports, #1 seed from the LCK. So basically, the good thing about this matchup is it helps decide what we all want to see. One, who's probably going to win the tournament? Probably the winner of this game. Two, who's the best team in the world? I actually think right now is one of those times where people are being quite fair. I noticed the LCK fans might think Hanwha Life's better, but no one's saying it's obvious. I think LPL fans have to think BLG's better, but it's not obvious. Like, we have to see this matchup play out. It looks really interesting. So I actually think the most astounding thing about this, though, is actually a lot of people at the moment in this market sided with Hanwha Life. The traders so far have Hanwha Life at 62%, which means BLG is already at 39% to win this BO5. So I've got to say, on my side, I actually think BLG is going to win this one. I think they're the best team in the tournament. I think the value is crazy for BLG here. Like, I would be going into BLG and saying, yes, I actually think the value is massive here. I think they've got a real good chance to do it. And I also think what makes this a really interesting matchup for me is I do think some of this is even being offset by the way the tournament's played out. Like, coming into the tournament, I might have said, well, I think maybe Hanwha Life's maybe the best drafting team along with G2. BLG, you never quite know because they play through hands. I think BLG's looked way better drafting wise. They've even actually had like that game. It's like they've even won some late games, for fuck's sake. They've looked a lot better in that sense. So I'm actually interested to see Yamato in this matchup. Hanwha Life, BLG. Who are you favouring? Who do you think will win this matchup? It's obviously a marquee. We're all waiting for this one.
This is the matchup. BLG T1 was the matchup with like capital T, but this is the matchup with capital everything. In terms of what we've seen from HLE so far, I do think that they have played against very light opponents in Team Secret Wales and also G2. I hate to say it, G2 is a light opponent in the context of everything that we've seen at this tournament and what the opposition is at this tournament. BOG had to go through T1, and they had a vacation series against LYON, of course, which can be compared to what HLE has gone through. I think HLE is generally speaking a more disciplined team, so I don't think they allow themselves to kind of lower their skill level too much against lower opposition the same way BOG does. But I understand if a fan out there just watch BLG against LYON and think that this is going to be, a part of their weakness. I think the main thing that stands out to me, coming into the tournament, I predict the BLG as the winner. The main thing that stands out to me is that I do think that Zeus's form does look better than Bin's. If there's anything to stand out, as a potential advantage for HLE is the fact that I do think that Zeus just looks a little bit sharper. And I do think that that could be a point of danger if it turns out into, if the matchups top are going to be kind of an ego brawl, where it's going to be counter after counter, and it's going to be a question of who gets the better of the other, and that's going to be the deciding factor in the game. I do think that Zeus looks a little bit sharper now. But in regards to everything else, Knight has delivered. I think that On and, of course, Shun have delivered big time. I still have, a little bit of skepticism about the Light in regards to certain champions, but we have such a melee-heavy meta that he should be comfortable. But I do think this is a series that goes long, and if it does, I do trust BLG to just go a little bit deeper into the champion pool across the just a wide spectrum of champions that they can play that they showcased against T1. I think that they can keep up with them when it comes to the jungle support situation. And I do think that the depth of Knight's champion pool is going to be a big difference maker, because we've already seen Syndra, and Syndra is doing super well. And this is not something that everybody can play. We've seen Caps play Syndra, we saw Faker play Syndra, and of course we saw Knight play Syndra. The fact that he has this in his back pocket and he can challenge him on the melee champions, and he also has the LeBlanc ready to go, I do think that's going to be the most dangerous weapon for BOG. I do think this is a series that should go to 5 games. And I'm hoping that regardless of what happens in this one, that we get a rematch, because that's probably going to be the case. But in the first opening one, I'm just going to stick to what my initial prediction was, because I don't think I've seen anything in the tournament that is going to shake that prediction just yet. But as I said back then, it's going to be marginal. I think it's still going to be marginal. And I think the last time we talked about it before the tournament, I also thought it's going to be marginal. But I give the slight edge to BOG. Because even in their loss against T1, that one game, I think that was just them warming up to the tournament. Like, I think as they warmed up in that best of 5, they look sharper and sharper and better and better. And I do think that the momentum for both of these teams is now up and going, and we're going to see them in their best shape here coming into the matchup against each other.
The reason I'm so hyped for this matchup is, like I was sort of describing earlier, I do get the vibe of BLG, of some of the best LPL teams ever, which is your core strength should be team fighting. If you have insane team fighting, they have it already. You've seen it where like they have that shit where it's like they can come back against any, but that's the fucking dopest shit to follow. And I've always felt like the reason that's so beautiful if you're an LPL team is that is traditionally how you win. It's more the Korean way. It's like we're going to out macro you later, or we have some like pick that works in a way you don't expect in giver. That's not really BLG style. So I think they have to be the hands team. So I'm with you. And in fact, I'll even say, I think the most interesting thing about this matchup that shows why it's a banger is the players I've picked out as like the ones I'm watching on each teams play different roles. So it just shows how the edges will be different. So I'll give you the example. For HLE, the 2 players I'm looking at is Zeka, because I do think, as Faker showed, you have to have at least some game to match night. Otherwise, you're just going to get run out the server, mate. Like, he's too good right now. His champion pool's too deep. He's got certain picks. What I love is he just forces the advantage on them. Like, he just goes fucking hard. So if Zeka can play, by the way, the split I just saw Zeka put in looks like he can. He actually looks like he's capable of being in the game. So that already makes it interesting. And then the one part, he's played well, but the part I'm scared about on HLE has to be Delight. Like, I think this is his tournament, bro. Like I say, this might be the tournament where at the end, if BLG win, people might actually say out loud a line that would have been illegal any other year, which is On might actually be better than Carrier. Like, that sounds crazy, because coming into this, I actually thought it was Knight and Carrier were the like best player of the world candidates. On wasn't in the conversation. He was just a really good support. Like, he's played so awesome. If he wins this series and the tournament, why not? Why couldn't he be? He's had an excellent performance. So Delight hasn't showed me the champion depth. He's looked a little bit more. So I feel like they'll have to work around him in the draft. I need to see some like I need to go back in time a few years. I don't know, 2022 Delight, the old Delight on Gen G. Give me that guy. If that guy turns up, maybe we can do it. And then on the side of BLG, I'm with you. I actually don't think Bin's had that good a tournament, mate. He's had a couple of games that were good, but actually there's somewhere I almost felt like he forced it a bit too much. That didn't work. Like sometimes it looked like he's tried to deal with his trash talk, all this ego. It hasn't really been about the top laners in these series. And then the other one for me is Viper. Because look, it is really interesting that he is flexing all these majors, and it does look actually bizarrely like the meta's wide open for it. Like he can play a lot of AP shit in the bot lane. But with that said, surely he's going to have to win me some games on real ADCs as well, though. I'm going to have some traditional old-school Vipers. So I saw some glimpses. I told you coming in, I'm thinking like last year when Ruler was a bit ass in LCK, but then he came in MSI, he was really good. Just give me like one big series right now. That might be all I need. But aside from that, I'll give that to Gumayushi. Gumayushi's looked excellent this split. He's had one of the best splits of his career, especially because he doesn't have carry, he doesn't have T1. So I think what's cool is notice those totally different lanes that I'm even putting the players in that I'm watching here. And then here's what I actually hope for. If I had one hope for this series, it's this Yamato. Normally, I'm one of those people who thinks the Silver Scrapes thing is overrated because everyone just automatically says every 5-game series is a banger. It's amazing. Sometimes 5-game series is shit, but here's why I want a 5-game series, Yamato. Because with these two teams right now, I really want to see what they will draft in Game 4 and Game 5. That is so fucking interesting because these teams have shown they're willing to gamble and got some interesting angles. Like I feel like you could get some crazy drafts in a Game 5 with these two. So let's just hope it's just a fucking all-out series where they give, because I'm with you. I'd be up for watch this one, 4-5, and then let's rerun it in the final. Let's do what we did last year with T1 and Judges. Have another one where we get to learn from the last series and what just happened. I think that's where Failures gets interesting.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. It's just, I'm zooming out. There's also such big narratives, right? We have the Golden Road. We have Zeus versus Ben in the department of just, making arguments for being the GOAT. You know, even in the ADC department, you know, obviously in the ADC department is a little bit different because of Deft and Ruler's pedigree, right? But even for guys like Viper and Gumayushi, you know, like these are the type of
These are two of the
MSIs
best
that
of all time.
you know,
Yeah.
we value these MSIs big time in these conversations of who's the
Agreed.
GOAT in the position.
Agreed.
And considering they're still on top teams and still swinging, you know, there's a lot at stake here. Just zooming out and the potential impact on the whole year, and also the legacy of what just is League of Legends. So like this is. All those dumbass regular season games we're watching, every show that we do, it is for these moments. It's like it's for these moments, and I just hope that the series does us justice. But honestly, with where both teams are right now, I just can't see a world where they don't. There's no way we're gonna walk away from it's like, what did this team just do? 3-0 from the other side. These guys got swept. I just can't believe a world where that's gonna happen. Well, if it does, then that's going to be our skit. So,
yes. If anything, we should just make that part of the skit, like you saying that, and then it goes into an actual skit where we extend the joke out further, isn't it? Exactly, of course. Okay, what about this then? Let's talk, because obviously we barely talked about G2 aside from the TES series. Let's talk a bit about G2, because obviously they have a really spicy matchup coming with T1 now, where they're heavily underdogs, and most people think they're going out the tournament. In fact, the gag, like people pointed out before the event with the seeding, is they probably would have been better off losing a fucking TES. They'd actually had like a route where they probably could have come fourth here, so it's actually kind of a bummer that they're probably going to go out 56. Meanwhile, LYON gets to play Team Secret fucking Wales and beat FURIA and Team Secret Wales to come fourth in the tournament. And then, by the way, we all know Americans, even though their team is like Europeans and fucking Koreans, they're all going to talk shit about NA over EU, because it's just what Americans do. Understand that we love and hate them for the same things. That's just who they are. That's their charm and what makes them annoying. It's all good. So let's talk mainly about G2 before we do the matchup. Right, I have to say, Yamato, this is going to be harsh because they just beat TS. And as I pointed out earlier, actually, Western teams don't beat Asian teams in BO5s. Like, actually beating TS a couple of years ago, MSI was a big deal too. And being in position to beat teams is even, like, legit. But here's one of my problems. Even though the TS series was banging, they had some excellent games there, they were down 0-2, though. They were getting destroyed in the first two. And one of the obvious problems I have with G2 is this. It's why I actually get a bit uncomfortable when Remain says that line that I get why a GM would say after he wins a championship. But you know, he's said now twice after they won both splits that actually G2 has the best player in every position in the LEC. Look, if he means in the sense of like that you can guarantee would be able to play in a final and win the league and go into that, he might be right, because they have like actually a very solid group of players that have consistently shown it have a good floor. Even Broken Blade sort of figured out international play, even though he's certainly not a top performer for me. Right? What he means by that, I assume, Yamato, is if I'm cynical and I pick the players I think talent-wise could be better, like Nako, Jojo, Kalist. The problem is, like you saw with Kalist, I can't guarantee it happens though. Like that, he's not as storied as Hans Sama. If I put Nako in, by the way, I don't even yet know if he's a playoff performer. Domestically, we don't even know. I'm just going off like, you know, his hype and his skill level. So I get what Remain means by that. But the one problem I have is this, Yamato. This is why I'm going to set you a task here is, the reason why I personally don't think they will beat T1 is I always feel like this G2 roster has like enough skill, but I don't think they've got enough big punches for me. You know what I mean? Like, Skumon's awesome, but fucking hell, he's got a lot of pressure on him whenever he plays an Asian team. He basically has to be the best jungler in the server. If that first tick isn't there, I feel like they're going to lose. So similarly, Broken Blade and Sama are good enough to play internationally, but are they as good as Peyz? I don't know about that, mate. Are they as good as, like, if they play, they already did, Azais? No, they're not, unfortunately. So where are you at on this? Are you more hyped about G2 than I am? Because essentially, I'm just a bit bummed because the bracket means I think they're just going out here, mate. I don't think you do anything wrong, but I almost feel like you do need a super team from the West if you want to win these matches, because BO5's hard, bro. BO3 is one thing. I think in a BO3 they could get these teams. BO5's really hard and fearless.
Yeah, I think the main problem, right, for the West always is that whenever a role ceiling is decided by how good you are mechanically, that's where we always are going to struggle to compete against a lot of players. ADC, it has been true for ADC since 2022,
Yes.
pretty much,
Yes.
where like Gale Force meta was implemented, and we got to see how like an ADC like Elk or Gala, Gumiushi, any of these guys, how far
Yes.
forward they would posture and how much space they would create and how much more they would do than the standard Western ADC. And the same thing is very true for top lane now, due to, of course, the meta win. When has top laners when have top laners done the best? The more cerebral the role is, the better we've done. It's like the best segments of Soaz, Wunder, or even Broken Blade was when it was lane swap heavy. He could play tanks and he could play a defensive game and he could connect with his teammates. That's always been the best version of that game. Or when we think back to the best performances of ADCs, it was either like forgiven mechanically competing but lacking all the other things, and a perks that was strategically just so damn good, or reckless and hilly. But that was, of course, like an era before this new era of ADCs. And as long as roles are dependent on that mechanical skill, because even Caps, Caps, there were mid laners always mechanically better than him. When he was outplaying, for example, a Cream in a series, it wasn't necessarily that he was, heads up just winning like he's Clint Eastwood and just firing at him. No, it was always, base timers, traps, and how he played side lane, how he farmed better. This has always been Caps' strength in terms of how creative he is in the game. And that's the underlying difficulty here. Doran isn't some kind of a player that is going to slam you and destroy you, but I do think that Peyz against Hansama, that is definitely a tough matchup. I am really liking what I'm seeing from Labrov. Like, Labrov is playing, he might just be the best G2 performer at this tournament. Like, Labrov is playing absolutely out of his mind. All 5 games against top esports, I think he played absolutely fantastic. I don't think Broken Blade is playing bad. I think he's doing well, and I think that a lot of people in the community like looked at his rumble, but in reality, like, that was just Caps kind of selling the game. Like, he gets sold in the game a lot, and people just look at the scoreboard and say, oh, he's 2k gold behind. Yeah, but he got zoned off the tower 3 times, didn't die, and then swapped into mid, and then Caps died to the Mbessa on side lane, gave him the full tower. Those are the details that I think Broken Blade gets judged poorly by. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm with you. It's like the Peyz Hansama matchup is just so tough, and when it comes to team fight execution, that is where the concern is. But I do think that G2, they can find ways to punch up by being a lot more clever in the mid game. I think that their drafting against HLE gave them absolutely no chances, because I do think that the first game was clever. They pulled out the Warwick, but then again, you're playing against some of the best players on their champions. It's like you have Zeka Yone, and you have, of course, Zeus on Ambessa. These are some of the this is probably the best. If I had to choose a player to play these champions, I would choose these guys. You tried something out. It was a very competitive game, but then, of course, the creativity ran very short there with the Twisted Fate angle that they went with, and they definitely didn't have good prep. Against T1 here, if they can get a prep advantage, if T1 doesn't learn the lessons that they should learn from the BLG series, maybe they can find some edges here, because something that is impressive about G2 is that I think that they share that collective experience that T1 also carries, where the pressure of the moment is actually empowering a team like G2. So I don't think that's going to be an edge that T1 has here in the matchup. So T1 need to fix the mistakes, G2 do too, but G2, I think they need to hope that T1 doesn't. Otherwise, they don't have a chance here.
I have an angle I want to throw at you and see what you think of it. Because one thing I've noticed about the tournament so far that's actually a bit bizarre, it's something Kieran pointed out on my Discord, but he's right, is so far in the tournament, Yamato, an actual strategy some teams seem to be using for drafting is actually trying themselves to pick one of the power picks of the other team, like a signature champion. You think of things like the Syndra or the fucking Ari. Some of them are just trying to pick it themselves and just get it out the draft, so it can't ever be a draft they play against. It's almost like, if you notice, it's like the version this year of Drain Faker's draft pool that we talked about last year. Like, what do you think on that angle? You think G2 comes with like crazy drafts for this series?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I do think against T1 specifically, it does make sense. I do think that Doran and Broken Blade share a lot of champions that they like to play. I think that the support department, definitely you need to trim away there and choose very carefully when you are inviting carrier-specific champions. I think the same thing can be said for jungle. I think these are positions where T1 showed drafting weakness, and T1 seemed very rigid in the fact that when they decide on a draft structure, like in the BOG series, they were like, we're going to pick mid jungle top 1, 2, 3, no matter what.
Yes.
They didn't pivot away from that, which
No,
makes
no.
T1 very predictable. And if G2 can tap into the frequency that T1 is coming in with, maybe they can trim away that pool.
Let me ask
with
you a
intent.
question. Because if you say that to me, Yamato, which is obviously a pattern people can observe, that makes me actually feel like T1 doesn't have a massive ocean of champions, and that the reason why they're picking those order is because they've got literally a whiteboard where all those 3 picks lead into all the comps. So essentially, if you're going to do a crazy draft, you either like expect them to do something predictable so you can build your draft based on what they'll do on the first 3. That's the hint as to what they're setting up, or you attack those first 3, right?
No, definitely. Yeah. The main question is just what does T1 actually like learn? Like if they stick with the same thing, definitely you can challenge them and you can deny T1 from ever playing the bot lanes that they do want to play. Because in that BOG series, it's like if you, as mentioned before, if you come into a series and expect them to play Nautilus Jhin, Kaiser Camille, Pike Mel was the one thing that was like reasonable, and that was the easiest game that they played.
Yeah.
And that was the one game they decided to pick their bot lane in the 1-2-3. And the only reason they did that is because they were kind of forced to, because BOG just picked Caitlyn in a 1-2, and they just wanted to respond. Maybe in a world where BOG didn't pick their bot lane, maybe T1 would just pick their full topside again, and they would fall into that a negative pattern of play. Like even T1, they played Senna Leona. Like that is a very strange lane to play. I don't think that was in their wheelhouse, and it just seemed like something that they kind of, going into 4-5, expecting your bot lane to always find optimized picks that they can carry on when the enemy has bans and you need to do bans yourself, that is just too much pressure. I wonder if they're just going to flip it and then just play, be willing to pick their full topside and just have less optimized picks in the 4-5, because even in that game 4 where Cassandra was into Gwen and Ari was into Aurora as an answer, they didn't struggle, so it's just a question of what will T1 change, because maybe if you notice that T1 suddenly is going to pick a full bot lane 1-2-3, you just need to shift up your 1-2-3 bans and make sure that you trim away and attack the same pool that they want to extract from. It just always with Fearless, what happens in Fearless from experience as well is that there are certain kind of paths you go down where, for example, game 1, Varus is banned and then Ziggs is prioritized. And then after Ziggs is out, Varus is prioritized. And if they can kind of make sure to always pick the power picks to put T1 on the defensive, then I think that G2 can maybe diffuse T1's biggest weapon. But if T1 recognize that our bot lane is the best thing that we have, and we're going to use every priority in the draft to make sure that they are good, then maybe things can shift. Because I definitely think that T1 needs to be far more worried about BOG's solo laners than, of course, G2 solo laners.
Yes.
And I am really intrigued to see what the changes will be, because there has to be changes for both of these teams. The last 2 series that they played was very, very bad. So I wonder what's happening in their back rooms, of the prep work, because you expect both teams to make changes.
No, I'm with you. I even think this is where I actually think it's G2 I'm looking to. I want to see them pull something interesting out in the draft here, because I feel there's a lot of room to do it. Because if you actually look, I'll tell you one thing about T1 that I've found interesting is I worried in the play-in that they might just like fuck around and not reveal anything and just try pick sort of neutral champions where they're not super strong, not super weak, but we can win on this and we'll win the game generally. And who cares if you give a game up? Obviously they didn't need to. They just smashed everyone anyway. So actually, if you look, they're picking the same champions. They weren't even playing some weird off match. They just played all the champions they currently play on those 3. As you say, if you look at the mid jungle top, they're playing the same picks. They clearly have the defined set of picks. So to me, this is a rare case ever. I actually think you could say this happened 2 years ago when infamously G2 probably should have beaten T1 at that MSI. This is another rare time where, in terms of the draft, you might actually be able to get the edge on them. You might actually have the better champion pools. The problem becomes much like the BLG series, the Hanwha Life one. T1, sorry. Do you actually have the hands to pull it off, though? That's what I'm worried about. Like, Skumond is dope. I already think he's going to be one of the best ones of all time. But here's the thing, bro. Canyon at first stand is not Oner right now. Like, Oner is just on another level, bro. Like, Canyon is a few years removed. Similarly, I thought Keria looked a little bit muted against BLG. That wasn't the level I expect. If he plays his bit, I'm with you, by the way. Labro's having an excellent year, the best year of his career so far. He just slept on because people think he was like the weak player last year. The problem is Keria. I think Keria outside of that BLG series is unbelievable, mate. Like every BO5 he's going to have like one game minimum, if not two. Well, he's just unplayable. He'll just get his pick and he will just be a demon. You even saw it in that Pyke game. That wasn't even his best Pyke game, but you couldn't do shit against him, mate. You can never get anything off on him. He's just too good. So I have to say I don't favour G2 for this one. I'm just interested in what they can do, though. I think like some of the players, like actually, if you tell me Caps has an even series of figures, it's totally plausible. That's doable. I'm with you though. I do worry about the Zeus angle. I do worry about fucking Peyz just hard shitting all over everyone in a team fight. Like that's what I'm scared about. Now, Yamato. Before I talk about something else, what if I was someone, like I say, I want Dylan Falco to go out there in the draft and think different. What if I was someone who had an entrepreneurial spirit and I wanted to manifest that into the world itself?
Well, it's very easy. You just got to use Shopify. Shopify comes loaded with so many features that just makes it seem, even though you might be just a one-man company, it seems like you have your whole damn army just working for you, whether it's marketing that you need to optimize for SEOs or making your website looking clean and fresh. It's as simple as dragging and dropping. It's like it's as easy. A child could do it. And if for some reason you have coding skills and you want to make it more complex, then everything is there for you. Shopify comes, as I mentioned, with so many superpowers. It's always the same thing. It's like everyone always talks about how they want to make their own business and they want to, of course, make it their own way. I think Shopify and the deal that Shopify offers through our link and code is there's no risk involved. I don't know how many friends I've heard talk at the bar or anything. It's like, oh, I hate my boss. I just need to do this, do that, and I wish I could do my own business. Well, Shopify makes that dream a reality. Just get to it. And it's very easy to, of course, scale it. That's always the question. It's like, oh, is it going to always be small because I'm not running my own things? No, you can scale it. It's like Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to, of course, small businesses that just get started. It could be a side hobby that could eventually turn into, of course, your dream job because you don't have a boss. You become your own boss, and you're no longer limited by the one job that, of course, you hold. And there's a bunch of other features that Shopify offers. There's the Shopify, button that is always there when you, of course, are looking to pay for things, to simplify things and streamline things. I mentioned already how you have almost a marketing behind you that can optimize any searches for your specific products. There's also, of course, the design aspect that I also mentioned. But with that being said, I can talk endlessly about Shopify. Let's keep it simple. Let's turn that idea into goddamn money, cash, cha-ching. Start your free trial at shopify.com/summoning. Start your free trial at shopify.com/summoning. Make your dreams come true and free yourself. Money is freedom. And this is how you can make money and free yourself from that prison that your job puts you in.
To lead us into other conversation, I have one more T1 question. It goes like this. It's something I'm going to connect to what happened in that BLG series, which was, bro, again, I'm not a big draft guy, but this was one of the ones that did make me question it. Bro, what the fuck was the idea of picking Oner that Trundle when the comp he played into? Remember, they first picked it, bro. The comp they ended up having to play into, all he had was Rumble, like that. He had nothing, what? Listen, Oner is a sick player, but I don't know what you think he's going to do with that pick, man. That's nightmare fuel. Why the coaches put him? Either he put himself in that situation, or a coach just put him in a fucking dog shit situation. That's an unwinnable game, right? For the jungle, at least.
It's unplayable. It's the worst game possible from a draft perspective. Going into 4-5, it's like, the idea of T1's draft is they're picking Trundle to lock the enemy out of course, Xin Zhao. BOG showcased what the problem of red side is at this tournament, is that if you don't pick a bot laner where you can counter on 3, the enemy can swing a full bot lane on 2-3
Right.
and pressure you post bans. Because obviously T1 wants to play Zeri for example, against Ashe Seraphine. But in this spot they can't because they can only pick on 3 and the other part of it will be banned. And T1 go into the 4-5 and they don't ban the Kindred of course, Shun. This is one of his most played champs. I think it's third. To have a player that plays Premier League, and of course plays 100 games every damn year, have it as your third most played Kindred when it's completely out of the meta. This is something that they need to know about. This is something that they have played against themselves. And they invite the Kindred into the Trundle, and they ban the Xin Zhao, the champion that they wanted to lock out in the first place by picking Trundle. So it made no sense. BLG go into the 4-5 and they set up the Ashe Seraphim for success because once again, T1 put themselves in a position where they pick Trundle, Gnar, and Talia in 1-2-3, the mid jungle top lane, because they're worried about the champion pool being trimmed out and lessened. Because even in that spot, you can easily drop 4-5. Cyan is available, Oner is available, and Gnar is available into Rumble if that's something that you want to pick. I can assure you BLG will not ban it. You can easily just pick your full bot lane in 1-2 and then challenge BLG to match you and make the game volatile about bot lane and then, of course,
Also,
look to answer.
Since you said it as well, Yamato, the other thing that's so weird is if you yourself are first picking the Trundle, why do you ban this in chat?
Yeah.
You want him to pick it there. What are you doing? Like, it's so weird, isn't it? It's so weird. That's a brain fart moment. It has to be. What the fuck is that?
I have no clue. The Syndra they were aware of too,
Yeah,
they banned Syndra earlier in the series. They banned Syndra earlier in the series. And then, BUG just get their signature champs in 4-5, It's just a very, very tough look, At least it wasn't the elimination match, so they can kind of lick the wounds and not fall into the same traps again. But this was a very obvious one. This was like a Tom and Jerry trap, Like this was Wile E. Coyote, running over the mountain, and just noticing he has no flow. It's just one of the worst drafts we saw all tournament long. The Trundle. Like even in the game, like he was so desperate. Like the first blood that happened, he had like one moment in the game where he could fight the Kindred and get some kind of advantage and completely overplayed it and died because he thought to himself, you know what, I need to win the game here or I'm going to be useless for the rest of the game. So I understand where his frustration and his gameplay came from. Very strange drafting from T1 and game 5 was definitely the cherry on top of a shit draft cake.
No, I just thought I'd ask about that one specifically because that one was really weird. And I do think if you look at this tournament coming in, teams like Hanwha Life, G2 and BLG have been good drafting teams. That has clearly been a massive strength of theirs because it's making the game easier for themselves. And I do think this is where T1's looked a bit sus. Right, one thing before we go on, because I thought now's the time we can have this conversation is, put the camera on me again. Right, obviously we have a poly market for the tournament itself, which now just got way spicier because obviously now you have Hanwha Life is the clear favorite. The traders have them at 49% to win the event. BLG is actually only 30%. That's interesting. It makes me think that people think Hanwha Life's just the clear-cut best team. Obviously, they haven't had the challenging series yet, whereas BLG had the T1 series and even had the odd game against LYON that looked a bit sus. T1's way down at 21%. People don't believe in them right now. G2 is at 2%, and then other just says 1% and basically is irrelevant. So basically, I have to say, I personally think BLG is going to win this tournament. As I said before, I actually think the way that they play the game is sort of almost a bit more obvious. Like they play to the natural strengths of the players and of the LPL, which is we love to just get like a good comp into a team fight and then just use our hands to win the game. And right now, I do think Knight's the best player in the world. I do think actually that the jungle support duo is fucking cracked out. I don't even need the top and ADC to turn up every game. They just have to have the give me like 1.5 games each series, and probably that's enough to get me over the line. So I personally think BLG, I think there's a lot of value on BLG here. The question to Yamato is, which team does he think is going to win MSI?
It has to be, we already talked about HLE versus BLG so much, and I'm leaning BLG. Like if the average kill count, like I don't know what the average kill count is, but it's damn high. Like I've never seen this high of an
There's
average
so
kill
much
count.
fighting. By the way, normally I tell you, I'm someone who likes to watch VODs, and one thing I often do is, unless it's a really interesting match, I don't watch the whole lane of this. I skip through to the fights. Bro, on these VODs, you don't have to skip anything. They fight every like 20 seconds, it feels like. And once they get into the mid game, it's just constant fights around objective. It's really entertaining, actually. So a lot of high intensity league here, yeah.
It's just constant friction, and not to sound cliche about the LPL, but it's like this is the dream meta
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
BOG. It's just a
Yes.
dream meta,
Yes.
and I do think that the LCK, over the last years generally has just been better. But I think the nuance of this tournament, what happened post first stand, is that the LCK teams had to play catch up, and the question is, have they caught up on time? And I do think HG has done a fantastic job in terms of cementing themselves as a very strong competitor. But I do think this meta is very BUG coded, and I do think in a game that has constant friction. We already talked about this so immensely. I do think that it's a two-man race here between BUG and HLE, and we expect it to be a matchup we see twice for a reason, for sure.
What do we do now? Let me see. All right, I tell you what, actually, on the T1 G2, I don't think we actually predicted who win. Do you have T1 winning that one?
Yeah. I got T1 winning. Too many random things need to go right for G2, and regardless of how bad T1 is drafting, I don't think it's going to be that bad again. And I do think it needs to be in order for G2 to have a clear edge. And we mentioned before, it's like the things that were supposed to be a little bit weaker for T1. Like we expected their drafting to be bad. Okay, that's one check. We expected Faker to be a little bit worse, but he's played great. Doran is also someone that is not cracking under the
He's been
pressure,
fine, yeah.
And Peyz is also delivering. It's just Oner and Carrier. It's like they might just turn up really, really hard against G2, and then I think it's just a clean 3-0 for T1. Like if these things that we expected coming into the tournament land right, I think G2 has just very little to offer. But G2 prep work, Labrov being absolutely insane, and Caps maybe a whole series be in very, very good form. They have some magic to them themselves, but a lot of things the stars need to align for G2 to work. It would be, we walk away from that series and it would be like, damn, Caps, Skimond, Labrov just played the best series of their lifetime. It would be like Dylan Falco, GOAT coach, easy peasy because of the masterpiece that he just pulled off against T1. It will have to be very, very big words that we would have to add before mentioning how they managed to conquer the mountain that is T1, because I do think that some of their flaws are things that T1 can definitely fix in a day or two.
Even though I do think T1 wins this series, I have to say it's not just because I actually think BLG is going to win the tournament. I actually do hope that it's Hanwha Life they have to play in the lower bracket, because I want to see that matchup. Here's why. Because I actually do think, even though we saw that in LCK and Hanwha Life was getting the better of it, and obviously they won the road to MSI one, mate, as talked about with the FURIA example earlier, domestic is different from international. Like when you go to the international match, what I want to see is this, Yamato. I want to see, does having Guma and Zeus actually make Hanwha Life a new Hanwha Life? Because remember, a lot of what we're blaming the old Hanwha Life for, there's no Peanut anymore, mate. He was the joker. He was the one who couldn't struggle. Yes, Delight's had his issues. Actually, Delight's stepped his level up a little bit. He looks a little bit better here. Gumayushi, by the way, actually doesn't look like he's been affected at all by not being in team when he's playing some great league. And actually, you can make the case, maybe Zeus is the best top player in the world again. He's actually really fucking good again. A lot of people, I can tell, only watched first stand. They didn't watch the LPL. So they think Bin's like smashed everyone the whole time. He had a bunch of weeks where he was kind of chilling in the LPL, actually. He was one of the people who had to get his game together for the playoffs again. So I actually think this is a really, that's the match I want to see, because essentially I want all the big matchups to happen. So if we've already had BLG T1, we've already had BLG Hanwha, then let's have Hanwha Life T1, and then let's see, because then whoever wins that one, fine. See you in BLG in the final. I want to see that matchup, because look, BLG T1 rematch will be cool. There's obviously so much history between the players. I even think those styles are really contrasting, but I want to see Hanwha Life play everyone good. Like, if they're going to win the tournament, give me all the elite teams, show me them all, and then let's see what happens after that. What do you think? Well, I assume you're favouring Hanwha Life to be better at the moment. It seems fair that T1's going to be third, right? Am I right?
Yeah. I'm with you there. Yeah, I think it's going to be the case. As We have three super strong teams. I just want to see more and more of these matchups. Like make a triple
Yeah.
elimination. let me see even more. Let me see even more. I just want to see more games. It'll
And
be
the thing
such a
you said
whiplash to go
earlier,
back to the
I think
regular
the
splits.
interesting thing is what you said earlier as well, bro, which is here's what's funny. This is why League is such a compelling game. I actually do think that having Peyz makes T1 in one sense stronger than last year's T1, which is that player, when he is set up in the game, can carry as hard as any ADC in the entire world. Like right now, in fact, ADC is quite a weak pool, even. Like the joke is, it is people like Gumayushi are his competitors. Like right now, Jaculov can't do anything internationally. Fucking Viper's been kind of a bit meh. Ruler's irrelevant at the moment. Like, actually, there's not a lot of great ADCs popping off right now. So this is your time if you actually are Peyz to be a stud. The downside, though, is what you said earlier about the draft. It has made them a bit more predictable as a team, though. Like, they are very obvious as to where they want to carry, where the picks are going, what the comps are. And that is one thing that is a little bit worrying because it feels like they have to, like, ace all the win conditions. Otherwise, like, a lot of what made T1 cool in the past was this is why Worlds was so miraculous. They could just, like, MacGyver their way into a game, into a meta, and you were like, how the shit are they getting away with this? But fair enough, they are. To me, I'm calling it early, but it doesn't feel like that T1's like that now, mate. Feels like they're a bit more of a normal team in League of Legends.
Agreed. Yeah, I agreed. Like we were talking about it when the signing happened, and it seemed like one of those moves that would improve their chances in the LCK, improve their chances at MSI, because these are tournaments and competitions where you get more accurately measured against your opponents because
Yes.
it's much more comfortable than what the World Championship is. And the big risk always, like if they're in a position where they don't win any LCK and they don't win the MSI, which is from where we're looking, it looks very unlikely that they're going to win either, right? Because of the competition coming back to Korea as well. You still need to beat Genji, and HLE is very, very tough. Um, Coming into, like, if we want to zoom out and go all the way, this version of T1 going into a world championship without Gumayushi, are we going to view them differently? Because especially coming from last year, Gumayushi at Worlds together with Faker were by far the two most important players towards their win. And
It also has to be one of the players, Guma, who's got like the biggest step up from regular season level to Worlds playoffs of almost any player ever, mate. He always just seems to shine in the playoffs, right? They don't have him now. Who knows how Peyz is going to do? We have no idea, right?
yeah, because it's like the World Championship is such a different tournament. It's
Yes.
just it's a lot of pressure, very little practice, a lot of adaptation, and then just trusting your gut in very crucial moments. It's like even as much as people want to talk about Doran winning the World Championship, he almost fumbled it. The guy almost fumbled it, and by sheer force of will, Faker and Gumayushi just pushed them over the finish line. So that's where we will see the potential consequence or the price that they would need to pay for bringing in Peyz. But Peyz right now, as you mentioned, I do think that makes them better in a standard fashion. It's hard to compare the Gumayushi and HLE from the one in T1 because it just seems to be, a different player completely in terms of how important his form is. Because this season and this split here in spring, of course, for Gumayushi, this is the strongest regular split that we've seen from Gumayushi since I think maybe like 23 spring or like 22 summer. So Gumayushi was always a player that was very weak in the regular seasons, and that's why that change, should have impacted T1's results, but they've had similar results. And now at this, at this MSI, they are being tested the same way as at previous MSIs, because even though with Gumayushi they didn't do well at MSI by their standard, meaning that they didn't win or sometimes, didn't even make it to the final cut, just lost to BLG twice or lost to BLG early, right? So with that being in mind, I'm curious to see how the year will pan out, especially for T1 fans, because they're only looking at that World Championship,
Yep.
right? And if they don't win it,
Yes.
Gumayushi's move to HLE will have aged so damn good. Because
Yes.
right now it's looking good. Right now it's looking
Yes.
good.
No, I'm with you. I could even see a world, by the way, where like they could actually like win the summer split, the main split of LCK, but then lose worlds and have the one time ever where they're not a force. Because one of the problems I worry about is this. I'll actually draw a contrast between Counter-Strike and League of Legends, as I am often want to do. If someone just saw the most recent major, I'm one of the main people who was the cheerleader for this crazy move to bring Carrigan into Falcons. But even I will totally admit, Yamato, if you watched how crazy that major was, that was some T1 at World shit. They weren't actually the best team. They shouldn't even have won that. By the way, they had to win something like 4 series in that event where it was knife edge stuff right down to the wire and they were winning. And this is the point I'm going to make. You're going to see what I'm doing here. They basically won because Carrigan is Faker when it comes to majors in the same way as Faker is at Worlds. Like they both have been in the shit in the worst possible, most nervous scenarios, most tense scenarios, possible losses, impossible. They've just got so much experience. Experience is their weapon, bro. What they understand is this. It doesn't matter that in the regular season you're better than me and you win for obvious reasons. If we get into this incredibly high pressure major world championship match and you feel uncomfortable, but I don't, edge to me. Like I can now play the game in a way where you'll feel like choked up, nervous, you're scared to do something, or you do something and you don't. If I can just hold, it's like that famous Rudyard Kipling poem, "If," that everyone loves in England, the one where it has that line that says about, you know, if you can hold your nerve when others lose their heads around you. It's like that's actually a massive skill in really high pressure moments, and T1's always had that. The problem is, do they have it anymore? Like, again, if we're going to congratulate Gumayushi for all those Worlds runs where he's just like one of the cleanest players in the play, they don't have him anymore. No, for all I know, by the way, maybe Peyz actually is like the MVP of Worlds and smurfs every series. Could happen. He's got the talent to do it. Like, the cool news is, if you're a T1 fan, I've got good news and bad news. Bad news is you might have lost a little bit of the T1 magic, but you also might not need it. Like, maybe Peyz actually just the best ADC in the world, and he just gets into a bunch of team fights and just carries them like a traditional ADC, like a Deft, like a Ruler, like a Viper. If that happens, you can also win if you're T1. It's just, I think, a little bit of that, like, oh my God, T1 magic. I haven't really seen T1 magic this year. I've seen Kerry have some unbelievable games that carried you. I've seen Oner get his shit back together. I actually haven't seen much of Faker generally this year. So that's why I ask you, because it's not even that I think T1 can't win. I just think they're a different team. I'm kind of like getting into the new headspace of like, enough pieces have gone now. This doesn't feel like ZOFG came here. There's too many people gone.
You know, the crucial difference is, right? It's like we looked at T1 with Doran as a team that didn't make sense when they had Gumayushi, because you had two solo laners that on paper wanted to be played away from.
Yes.
And then somehow in that problem, they found a solution that people didn't expect. And in a world where you are standard and the team kind of how the team makeup makes sense, are you then too predictable because you're not facing the problem of, you know, needing to reinvent yourself? Maybe at this tournament, we mentioned it before, like if T1's going to win it, it's because they lean into who they are, no matter how different it might be from the meta. We talk about how AP carries bot lane are super strong, playing through mid lane is super strong. We have Zeka and Knight just being in fantastic form, and Faker playing a little bit of a different role on his team. Will they try to conform and lose because of what you've said, right? That they are quite standard? Because the T1 magic is always there. It's like facing an impossible problem and just having the guts to move in a completely different direction in an elimination match and just say, you know what, let's just do it our way. Because with the Doran setup, there was a big period there where they played through Doran, and Doran was the carry of the team. Like, that's how they beat HLE. And nobody in the world expected that shit.
Oh.
Nobody. I didn't expect that shit.
Yep.
I was pissed that they didn't play Sion every game and all these tanks. And then suddenly it just kind of clicked, and you had a situation where Doran was carrying games on Ambessa and on Gwen and on Yorick, and you were like, what the hell? What is this new version of Doran? And maybe, just maybe, being a team that makes more sense, maybe they will become too normal.
Because the point I'm making is you don't actually have to be magical to win games. Like, it's cool if you can. It's why people revere Faker and Carragher and these players for what the effect they have. But you can also just win by just being the best team in League of Legends. If you can play normal League of Legends, it's why if PLG wins this tournament, it'll actually be quite boring. Like, the analysis won't be anything deep. It'll be like, yeah, you know what? They have some of the craziest hands ever. Their jungler's a fucking demon, and their mid laner has an champion Ocean. Like, what do you want to do against that? Like, yeah, like in history, by the way, the difference is people will look back on some of those T1 Worlds wins and go, holy shit, how did this roster win over these teams that it played against? If you look at BLG's roster, every player in this roster will be in Hall of Fame one day, mate. It's unbelievable. Like, these are some of those cracked out players to ever play a league. So, no, I'm with you. That's why I thought I'd set it up now before they even finish this up. Before we know, maybe they do run to the final of this tournament. They still got a chance to win it. I just don't think they will personally. And obviously, I'm really interested for the rest of the year. It's also why, by the way, to spin it on the HLE side, this is why, to me, even though I'm not a big Goomer fan, I did think it was a genius signing, because even though you've separated from Keria, Zeus and Guma are just two players who should play together, bro. They both have, think about it, they're two of the only players that are world-class hybrids in terms of carry and weak side. And if you have them on the same team, it gives you essentially like flex carry potential. It's kind of dope, actually. Like, you literally can't know, Yamato, until the draft is complete, who's going to be the carry of this game. That's actually kind of a fucking powerful tool to have in your back pocket if you're HLE. That's fucking dope. And then also notice, I'll tell you about one area that certain narratives die really quick, bro, when they get killed. Remember, Kanavi was part of that whole lol, the LPL lol, look at them, we're all shit. No one's saying shit about Kanavi now, mate. They've all remembered he's Korean now. He's fucking back. The whole shit where he was tainted by the TS thing, or he was on the JDG and he fucked it up against T1 with Belveth. Mate, I'd love to see him play T1 at this tournament. Like, he looks like he's ready for his revenge. Like, he is fully Korean again now, bro. He's just a start to cast a monster.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to once again reiterate that point about the coaches of all of these teams. We mentioned Warhorse this time around. We talk about G2. Home has managed to find a way to piece it all together with players that are some of the best players in the world in very specific conditions. And he's managed to tap into that all at the same time with 5 players, which is insanely difficult because all of these guys are known for periodically being really insane, whether it's Gumayushi, Zeka, even Zeus at times. We've seen like periods where he was quite uninteresting as a player when it comes to T1's regular seasons. But somehow they managed to tap into everything making sense all at the same time, which is insanely impressive when you have players that naturally are going to have a very big ego because they have been successful at the highest level. Ego meaning conviction in a certain way of playing the game. And they have managed to find a way to piece it all together. And when you manage to piece it together, that's an environment where players actually have the capacity to grow beyond what their actual strength is, because we see different sides to Gumayushi as well, where they had like Kog'Maw Lulu games, and they had even tighter at Delight playing range supports, and Zeka actually thriving on mages and being more complete as a player. So just once again, fair play, and the importance of coaches now is just more evident than ever. And Home and Mowgli, they've done a fantastic job with this HLE roster, especially if you remember, which is that the story becomes so much cooler if you just keep in your mind how bad this team was in winter. Like, this team was terrible in winter, and they had a very clear vision, and the importance of winter is only there. Winter is only there for time. And if it breaks you being bad, which we've seen in the past, where a team is bad in winter and suddenly people consider the roster changes and they need to maneuver everything and start over. They just had conviction and a vision, and now it's paying off, which is super cool to see.
There's actually, to take a little break from some of the MSI stuff, we covered all the series and all the future series. There's actually another thing. Normally, I'd obviously leave any like off-season moves till after the MSI because we can catch up on them quickly. But there was actually quite an interesting interview done with Chris Greeley who's obviously, let me see what his actual title now is. He's global head of LOL Esports at Riot Games. That technically, by the way, means he's in charge of esports, basically, for all of the world of esports. So they did an interview with him at rift.gg, which, if people don't know, is like the news website arm of the people who do DPM, the stats shit. And so, and the people who did this interview were a guy called Ethan Cohen and someone called Mehdi, who are people who I believe have worked with Sheep Esports. I think they're from the French scene, as far as I know. And they did an interview with Chris Greeley where they asked him basically about everything. It was all, it reminded me of when after UFCs, where they do that scrum with Dana Wright, where everyone just asks him every question you have in your head, basically. Who's going to fight this person? What's the next card? Like, so they asked him a tons of stuff. And what I thought was cool was there's some good little quotes that were taken for the Reddit thread where we could just talk about some of these details, because he addresses basically every big issue, whether you believe him or not, that everyone's been thinking about this year in League. So an example would be, obviously people asked him about the whole franchising thing, because after LEC, I mean, you were obviously involved with Los Ratones. People do want it to be opened up now. People don't want it to be a closed off franchise system, because that would mean, for example, you can't have a Los Ratones unless you're willing to buy in the slot, and Cadle said he wasn't. And it just means that only people who have the venture capital will be able to get in the league. And we will have bad teams that are stuck at the bottom of the league that no one cares about. We won't maybe have some of the streamer projects or things that are bringing the entertainment that people want. So, like, that's one thing we can talk about. Like, I notice he essentially says, like, here's what's weird. I've got an angle for this. I want to see what you think about this. I thought the way he framed this was a bit dodgy, because he said that essentially what he tried to do is he made it sound like LEC's fine. It's just LCS has the problems. And he acknowledges the problems LCS. Right, first of all, that's not much, because LCS is so bad and the numbers are so bad. You basically have to say you fucked that up and did that. My problem with how he framed it for the LEC one, Yamato, is this quote says, half the current LEC teams were former ERL teams who bought into the LEC. So I think he's trying to imply there that that means the ERL system's good because those teams came from the ERL system, then they chose to join LEC. My one problem I'd have there, this is why I'm not the interviewer that gets to be in these rooms, mate, would my immediate follow-up question would be, yeah, but that's a weird thing to say, because if the ERLs are so good, why don't they want to stay in the ERLs? That it actually sounds like the opposite to me, mate. It sounds like what happened is they were in the RLs and they realized, oh, this doesn't work unless we're in LEC. Right, get together millions of dollars. We better buy a slot. Because I'd even say to him, mate, wait. I know compared to NA, it's way better, but that's a really weird thing to say when you bear in mind the following statement, right? What's the best ERL? Easily, it's the LFL. That's all it is anymore. Back in the day, there was a really interesting battle between LFL France and LVP Spain. If people don't know, there is no LVP. Spain is a fucking wasteland now. NLC, the Nordic and UK one, basically almost died this split. Had no fucking money. You got... What is that, bro? It's basically the LFL, that's it. And if anything, as you say, everyone wants out of the LFL. In fact, the whole reason people would even be asking you, Chris Greeley, about franchise leagues is we just saw Galleons and Solari actually doing shit in the EWC qualifiers. People don't want ERLs anymore. People think ERLs have been and gone. We want those teams in the LEC. That's what people are asking you about it. So I want to know what... We can go anywhere we want on this, Yamato. Do you have any thoughts about the franchise thing, about what he said here?
I do think that it kind of the argument or the point about ERL teams is like the ERL teams back then had incentive. ERL teams were created with the incentive to qualify to the LCS. It's like G2 came from there, Origin came from there, Splice came from there, Schalke came from there. There was a clear incentive that was super obvious. I remember back in season 3, the teams that were auto invited were the 3 teams that went to the World Championship, if I remember correctly, back in season 2. So there was like your CUG and your Moscow 5, and Fnatic had to play the qualifier. I remember they had to play the qualifier, and then you had a bunch of teams that were created with the sole purpose of qualifying into the league. And I think that the disconnect from that, I think that you didn't create with the moment franchising hit. While I understood the arguments for it, a lot more money flowed and a lot of things went in the direction of the teams. Is the fact that while players were expendable, you also created a circumstance where the teams that were basically the people that ran the teams and the teams that were the people that were GMing, they never got challenged and replaced, because that's basically what the franchise system kind of prevents. The teams that would come out of ERL and the teams that would qualify into the league would basically, offer something greater than the teams that would, of course, go out. And I think that's where the difference is, because now the ERLs, I see that they have tried to create incentives, right, by letting teams go through the EWC, create the incentive for, of course, the LEC and versus. I don't know if that's going to continue now that Loserton is not continuing. Is that going to continue?
It does seem cynical, doesn't it, that they don't want to do it anymore, bro? Like, come on, you made it sound like it was going to be a yearly thing, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I don't think anything has been said about that
No,
continuing
back
or
at the
not,
fact it's gone away, hasn't it? It's just no one
yeah,
seems like
like
they're talking
I
about
feel
it
like
at
it would
all.
be a bigger talking point about
Yes.
how the importance of EMEA Masters.
Yes.
Because I think the DRLs, they are losing incentive. Because the key thing for me, while the LCS has made a lot of decisions to kind of hurt themselves in many different ways, I also think the LEC has been very lucky that teams that wanted to get involved and people that wanted to get involved, they fought tooth and nail and made a lot of sacrifices to be involved. Whether it was, Ibai and his issues with Rogue and the money that he had to spend, and then moving himself, of course, to Mad Lions, and Casey buying the spot from Astralis. If you didn't have, these very driven people that, of course, wanted to compete and wanted to complete their storyline and wanted to, maybe operate probably at a loss for Ibai and Kameto. If it wasn't for these guys wanting to push the league forward, like let's just imagine a frame where we would still have Astralis in the league, Rogue in the league, and they wouldn't move the needle. Then obviously we would be in a situation here where Fnatic is still as a bad spot as they're in, and we would
Would be
only have
relevant.
G2.
Yeah.
It would be very tough. It would be so tough. But instead we have Navi, we have a revitalized MCoy, and we have Casey. So in terms of the ERL integration, I do think that it gave a pathway for passion to come into the top echelon of competition, and that has been closed off. And I just think that the LEC has been very lucky on that front. And I think that if we look over to the LPL, it's like they like you look over to the LPL and you think about some of the OG teams that have just gone completely bankrupt. It's like a lot of the teams that have won the international competition out of the LPL are gone. The biggest teams are the ones backed by the biggest firms, whether it's Jindong or BOG or even Weibo. But the fact that RNG is out of the pool, FPX is out of the pool, and it's like the fact that IG got revived. It's like they're just lucky that someone decided to pour money into there, but they were at the cusp of just being completely removed from the world too. I just think that is, where the ship is moving in a direction that is very scary. I think that this interview, he said as much as he could, because obviously he's not going to, overstep and do like bad PR for the product. I don't expect, a global head of esports to do that. I think he said as much as he could on many topics, but I do think that the future is scary. But the fact that Saudi money is involved already, with EWC, they seem to, trickle everything in a very kind of, PR sense way. They found ways to integrate ERL teams to give them some incentive, and maybe slowly over time they managed to, convince people that they've promised big things to open up a little bit more, because obviously the mistakes they've done with the League of Legends ecosystem, these are mistakes that they are making sure they're not doing in the Valorant system. They are very careful with how they do the Valorant system, and I would be very certain in a world where they didn't make the same commitments in League of Legends the same way, they would have done it the Valorant way rather, in terms of how open it is, and how there's an opportunity for teams to, for someone to be like, oh, I want to compete. How do I do it? And how do I kind of bring my idea into this competition? If I have a vision of how I can be better than the LEC teams, here's a pathway for me to kind of enact that idea, similar to some of the teams that we know and revere to this day, whether it was Origin of old, or G2 Esports, or even like Cloud9 with High and Meteos, and them coming through and building a long-lasting legacy. If the system was already closed off back then, what would we have lost if franchising started back in season 3 already?
And I have to ask you about something to do. Oh, by the way, you wouldn't have loads of amazing players in the league even that didn't get signed. They fought their way through promotions. No, I want to ask you, here's the thing. I want to spin this back, because even though in the interview, he just essentially pivoted it to be about the successes of LEC or ERLs in Europe. And then he even had some corp about LCS of like, it's not that the fans don't watch League anymore. They just don't watch LCS. They just watch all the other regions, which is like, what a mad thing to say out loud. Here's what's weird, Yamato. If you don't know, I looked this up while you were talking. Chris Greeley is someone who was an attorney, so he's essentially a lawyer, if people don't know. If you see the way he is doing interview answers, guys, this is like a lawyer or a politician would do, where you don't really answer the question, you just say vague that, yeah, maybe, or could be. It seems like, it's that sort of shit. And then also, I'm just going to put this out there. If I look up, this is a post that was actually on not even an esports site, about when he got appointed as the head of esports for League of Legends. Listen to this. It says, Greeley was previously head of esports for North America and Oceania. This is in September 2024. They wrote this post at Riot Games. Listen, where he was responsible for the vision and strategy for the competitive and business operations of all of Riot's competitive league or competitive esports in the US, Canada, and Oceania. So essentially, think about it. They're saying he was the one behind the vision of the last few years of LCS. And then listen to this. It says, Greeley was also one of the primary architects of Legends Championship Series, LCS, franchise model, and led the 2017 application process for participation in the LCS. Right, here's why, Chris Greeley, you don't get to say things like, good news is they are just watching, just not the LCS. You mean the thing you built? That was your idea and your vision, and you oversaw and you implemented franchising for. Yeah, guess what? You don't get to later on go, I mean, they are, technically, Thorin, they are watching, just not the thing I built. Sounds like you're shit at your job. What a mad thing. So also, if you're the journalists, guys, when you were asking, you have to know what I just told you there before you do the interview. You have to know you're basically asking this guy, hey, Chris Greeley, you know that thing you built and was your vision that's completely failed? Shit, innit? Like, what are you going to do about that? You can't just have him like, well, yeah, but there's other things that, like the stuff I didn't build's going awesome. Like, what? What are you saying? Like, so I think it's one of those ones where I just find the whole thing bizarre because, again, I had this happen on I did an episode of the Four Horsemen last year or 2 years ago, where it was with the guy who was the CEO of G2, the guy called what's his name? He's a French guy. What?
Albon Deschelot.
Albon, there you go. It's a super French name, that's why it's hard to remember. And on this show, he fully himself admitted that he was the guy back in the day who said in LEC we couldn't have core streaming. Well, guess what? Surprisingly, he's going to have different opinions about core streaming in Cadril if he was originally against it, wasn't it? So my problem with this topic is this guy's never going to admit franchising's busted, is he? He's the one who implemented it. He's never going to say that they've taken all the wrong decisions with LCS because that would make him responsible for where they are right now. So I want to ask you about this, Yamato. As someone who's in theory, you're not a totally neutral outsider. You've obviously in theory just joined the coaching staff of the LCS. What is Yamato's perspective on the LCS? Like if we're separating it, even he's separated from ERLs in Europe. If we separate NA completely, we can ignore EU for a second. Do they have problems because they got a franchise system? Do you think it can ever turn around with viewership for LCS? Where's Yamato at on that topic?
I think, I've always been harsh about the LCS, and I think it always came from the same position. I have the same position now in the sense that you went down a path with the LCS where you have your big flagship teams showing signs that they want to exit. They're showing signs that they want to invest less and less. And now for the teams in the LCS, they're basically playing a game of survival in hopes that eventually we'll get to the point where things are going to be better. I just have sympathy for the teams more so than anything else, because you have bought in and you've made a commitment, and then even the decrease of making it into 8 teams, making it into a guest slot, and the overall decisions that have diluted the team's position, whether it's like FlyQuest or C9, that to me is the toughest aspect of it all. Obviously the LCS teams aren't capable of speaking out too much because obviously they can't hurt the product that they are a part of. But I wonder how big part of the decisions that were made around the LCS, how involved were they really? I think that along the line, you can blame some of the teams in terms of how they mismanaged funds, in terms of how VC money came and they tried to make like big money acquisitions to win the championships of today. They made big promises in terms of what would actually be, the future of the LCS, and they spent way too much because in reality, that VC money could have been a war chest that could have kept your whole organization afloat for the next 10 years across maybe multiple esports in terms of the money that was spent, whether it was the TSM FTX deal or like the Huni contract that was paid out or Sword Art and all that jazz. Definitely there were mistakes from the team side too, but I think somewhere along the line, the main thing, we remember a time where the LCS was the most important league. It was the
Massive.
most entertaining league. When it came to European contracts, the dream was to be signed to TSM. The dream
Yes.
was to be signed to C9 and to COG and to go over to North America. Like when Gosu Pepper, our boy Edward, was the first one to be signed. Everyone, I can tell you, all the players were
Yes.
jealous that he got to go to Cursed.
Yeah.
And
By the way, even some of the players who never went, like the Yankoses and the Humanoids, I can tell you, some of them have said as much publicly. Their plan one day was, before they got totally washed, to just go and do a couple of years in NA and get a few $1 million. Like, that was almost, even though it was a gag to you, there was a perception of like, it's just where you go. It's like MLS now. You go there to get a bag at the end of your career, don't you?
yeah,
That was real.
and it was also like at the timing where NA wasn't seen as an inferior region to Europe. It wasn't a part of the equation too much. It wasn't a part of the narrative. It
Yes.
was just any player that was in North America, they put on the stream, and you would just have amazing viewership. And somewhere along the line, the teams also changed focus to competing internationally and losing the soul that made it so popular. Because just as much as remember the early days of the LCS, all 20 players on the top 4 teams, they were also very known streaming personalities,
Yes.
whether it was Scara, PewDiePie, I Will Dominate, or
Odd
of
One,
course Reginald,
Dyrus, a
Odd
million
One,
people. Yeah.
Dyrus, Hotshot
Hotshot
GG,
GG,
Charlester,
yes.
Doublelift, like all of these guys. So there was a change of focus. There was the
Yes.
VC money, there was the LTA change, and not really understanding why the league was successful in the first
Yes.
place. And I do think that demographically there's a challenge with the LCS in the fact that the country is so damn large, so ping is always going to be an issue. And in terms of what people lean towards is of course console gaming in America. And I think that the only direction that I see, I've said it many times, is that LCS needs to just become the league where it is open to all players and also all forms of money. Because if there's ever going to be like a Team Falcons in in League of Legends, I think it has to be in the LCS.
Yeah.
And maybe you're going to have a world where you no longer have just restrictions on which players you're going to bring in to the region, because if you have your most important players in Jojo Pune and Busio moving over, you just that already is such a big red flag. All the red flags are in the air.
Yeah.
And to focus it back on the interview, to say that the viewers are still there, but they're just watching other things. It's way harder to regain a lost viewer than it is
Yes.
to gain a viewer in the first place. And I think that's what they try to do by rebranding to the LTA. It's like, oh, you watch LCS, but LTA is different. Give it a try. And it didn't work because you're not hitting any nostalgia. You're not hitting any nostalgia factor. And I think that's so tough to overcome. Like, let's just as an exercise, imagine along the way, G2 and Fnatic just said, this is no longer feasible for us. We are going to go out of the LEC. Like, imagine the impact that would have on the LEC. That it would just be immense. It would be unrecoverable if Fnatic and G2, the legacy of the region, would just tap out. It's just inconceivable. So I have sympathy for the teams because they're just hanging on and holding on in hopes that something is gonna give. Because I imagine that most teams just operate on a loss.
And also, since he referenced it, I'll even tie in the whole what happens when Faker retires. Bro, I'll tell you one of the most scary things when Faker retires is not only might you not have as much viewership for T1 generally, but a lot of the Western viewership is also probably thanks to Faker. Like, he does have the Michael Jordan effect where if people don't know, a lot of people who are modern day fans won't know this. It actually wasn't, even though the modern day shit of the last 10 years is what made the NBA truly global, actually Michael Jordan was the original reason anyone outside of America gave a flying fuck about basketball. I can tell you when I was a boy, and in England, we only gave a fuck, mate, about British sports like football and rugby and cricket. And so, even back then, people were like, who were sport fans of those sports, knew who Michael Jordan was and were watching like the odd highlight thing, or if they had like a basketball show, people tuned into it. Like, just because of this one guy had that effect. So the thing I also worry about is when he says that, you know, the viewership's watching LCK, if those are just NA casuals, they're not even going to be watching LCK when Faker retires, mate. If Faker, again, replace him with anyone, put BDD there, technically a better player right now, he'll just won't be the same star power. And if they're not as good a team, by the way, if T1 drops off as a squad, a lot of the interest, it'll just be back to being hardcore people watching Hanwha Life play Gen G and KT. You won't have the same casuals. So to go back to the NA topic, here's one of the problems I think they've missed in NA. I always said, I actually think the area they fucked up the most, and by the way, they haven't learned their lesson, as you saw by JoJo getting fined for swearing, is they never understood that the LCS America is always about the show. It's about entertainment value. And I always say the thing they wasted the most was they had them all. They had the who's who of the WWE of League of Legends. They had Doublelift and St. Vicious and Hotshot GG and Scar. You listed them all off. These weren't just famous players, bro, and good players. They were simultaneously the best players and the biggest streamers and the biggest personalities. And they already came with pre-packaged like rivalries and beefs and friendships and histories, and they've been on each other's teams. That was half of what made the league bang. The level of player was never as good as Korea once Korea got going, but it had everything else around the game that people care about. People care about personalities and drama and trash talk. And that's why the joke now is even Asian teams are trying to do things like that. Like, they're trying to brand the fucking shonen narrative of T1 at Worlds. They're trying to get every piece of Doran trash talk from Bane onto the mic because everyone wants that. That makes the game way spicier than what do they pick in draft and how does his Jax do into this fucking pick. So I think one of the funniest things about League is the NA people seem to have missed that, like, the modern day is still about streaming in the West, guys. It's about Kometo and Ibai and Keijo. You guys had all that in LCS. You just let it go to shit, and now they haven't got any of it anymore, and no one watches. So one of the weirdest things is Monty, for years and years on this show, made the two most obvious changes that I would have done in the LCS tomorrow, bro. So first of all, a detail I didn't know until Monty told me, so I know he knows how to hit a political slogan, is I didn't know this, Yamato. You think about giant USA is apparently something absurd. I'll Google the actual number now, so I'm not off. So let me see. I'm literally going to Google right now. What percentage of the US population lives on the East Coast? It's 80%, bro. As in the east of the country. The server is in LA, motherfucker. Isn't that true? Isn't that where the server was before? Or did it get moved to Chicago now? Was that the premise? Where's the server located? Server location, NA.
Not so sure.
Because I think it got moved later, but let me just see where it is now. So now it's in, oh, I got the wrong way around. They did move the server. The server's now in Chicago. So that means if you're an NA pro, you live in LA on the very West Coast and the server's on the East Coast. That's absurd already. It means the pros are getting bad practice. And then secondly, if everyone lives on the East Coast generally, and it's cheaper on the East Coast, why doesn't it get it out of LA? It doesn't make sense. That's one of the most expensive places you can be. One of the first things I would do tomorrow is I would move to somewhere like the East Coast, vaguely near the server. You'll have cheaper costs for housing, for hosting events, you have better ping. Like, it's one of the weirdest things because that's all fine when you have the lottery of what they had at the beginning. You have all the viewership, you have an infinity money, you have all this superstar play. It doesn't matter. Like, that's two things I would change. I mean, they're logistical issues that can fix your league. And then I'm with you, by the way. I'll go one further than you. I'm with you. Fuck this idea like Falcons can't be allowed in. guys, you have to let everything in now. You've let alcohol in, you've let gambling in, you're letting the Saudis in. Just let them buy a team at this point. The one thing you can't say as a League of Legends league is, I won't let someone who wants to spend tens of $millions into my league. There's no people like that out there now. So not only would I let Falcons in, because I agree with you, Matt, it's even a clever angle to spice your league up. I'll go one further. I actually made this point earlier this year. No one else seemed to pick up on it. If I was LCS, remember, unlike LEC, LCS from last year has a guest slot, remember. So 100 Thieves was playing in, if you remember. They weren't a franchise team anymore. They took the payout and then they came back. If we have a guest slot, why aren't we inviting Los Ratones? I would have done that move. I'd have been like, you know what, Los Ratones, we liked what you did in LEC versus. Do you want a slot in the Summer League? Like, come over to the LCS, fly everyone out. By the way, you know how hype that would be? And let's be real, with the talent over there, mate, someone like a Nemesis could, like, fuck around and be, like, the MVP of the LCS. Like, and do you know how hype it would be to have, like, first of all, Baus would even fit their streaming culture, bro. They would love that guy over there. And people would love to see fucking Reckless and Nemesis play in the LCS. That would be dynamite. That would be fucking the shit. I'd even low-key love to see fucking my boy Crowley just mouthing when, like, Sven trash talks him or some shit like that. Just say some bullshit about him when he was in BDS or some shit. Like, it would be amazing. So if I'm with you, you have to be open to every idea, in my opinion. LCS has failed completely, and whatever this guy's vision was, you have to open the doors and allow some creativity into the league. Because actually, like I said about the guest slot, I feel like they have more mobility than we do in LEC right now. If I'm in LEC, remember, my partners in the other teams, if the other teams, as they said, say, I don't want a streamer team and that hasn't bought in, you have to some degree honor that, in my opinion. It's hard to go against that because eventually they're going to get pissed off and leave. LCS, you barely anyone left anyway, so you may as well just pivot and try new stuff, because I reject all of this. I still think it's possible to improve things. I don't think you can ever get back to, like, having 300,000 people on stream. That's probably unrealistic, but the idea you could actually have, like, a healthy viewership and an interesting, you can. I always think it's possible to turn. You should never be a doomer, in my opinion. You can always turn shit around.
I think the toughest challenge of the position that Riot is in is that they made decisions that were so committal. Like the in terms of the franchising and in terms of the locations that they chose. Now there's such a sunken cost that it's something that you can't walk back from. And there's that challenge, and also the challenge of League of Legends as a game. I think it's very, very hard to hit the nostalgia bone for people. That's why they're rolling out League of Legends Classic, right? Because they want to hit nostalgia. Nostalgia is one of the most powerful emotions that you can lean on to. And that's why T1 is so popular, because they are so consistently offering the same. Faker is always consistently offering the same thing. You can go away from League for a year, tune into the World Championship and say, damn, that's my guy Faker. I used to watch him 13 years ago tear up the rift,
Literally, yeah.
And I think that there's a reason why Fnatic, like, no matter how much we rag on them, it's like they still have a fan base that is very strong and a brand that is very strong due to the nostalgia. People were there when they were playing, well, if it was IPL 5 or winning the early splits of the LCS, and Reckless being a rookie, and Soaz and Peke. It's like the nostalgia factor is such an important thing to hit. And when it comes to League, that a game that is ever changing, is like the biggest advantage I think CS has is that I could have played 1.6. I tune in and I still see my AKs, my ops, and my Dust 2s. Like I still see the same shit when League has new champions and new things that are coming your way, that it becomes unrecognizable if you just kind of remove yourself for the game for the slightest moment. So on the topic of, like, Faker retiring and all that jazz, when you lose things that are recognizable for someone that hasn't watched for 5 years and watched in the past, it becomes very exhausting to invest energy into it. So that's also something that Riot also need to always have a fear of. So the position is very difficult, I can complain about the decisions and give suggestions, but the position is fucking hard. Very difficult.
All right. Well, one thing that you can do, like the old days of the LCS 13 years ago, 12 technically, we started in 2014, and to this day, still just as good as ever, my opinion, obviously biased, is you could listen to podcasts. So why not do that with our sponsor, Raycon? Because Raycon obviously have their wonderful everyday earbuds classics. And if you have them, first of all, if you're listening to this, Chris Greeley, and you're listening to some, you could turn on awareness mode. Now, that's not self-awareness, which you desperately need because you're the one who made all those problems in the LCS and fucked it all up. So, of course, you don't see a way out of it. You don't think there's any reason to do. You want to have a career. This is actually noise awareness, isn't it? So what it'll allow you to do is block out certain sounds in the background, focus on what you're doing. And you can turn it off then if you want a minute. So depending, if I'm in the gym, I like to have something like that on. But at the same time, maybe I turn it off if I'm walking through the town because I want to cross roads and not have a bike coming the side of my head. So I think that's a pretty cool one. Also, it's got the thing where you can do the quick charge function. So I always say the bomber back in the days, if you forget before you're on a day trip, like, oh, I forgot to put my thing on charge, you're screwed. Like, you're going to be in a lot of trouble looking for an outlet. If you still have 10 minutes before you need to leave the house, you can get 90 minutes worth of charge. Like, that's a good car journey, a commute, a walk, whatever. That's easy. And if you have half an hour, you're laughing, you're going to have a few hours worth of charge. Also, if you have the case, with the case, you have up to 32 hours of battery life. So it doesn't matter if the buds themselves have worn down. If you have the case, you can have a load of charge there. That's more than a day's worth. So as long as, again, you at some point have a power outlet, you're going to be continuously being able to listen. I think that's dope. And they have a 30-day happiness guarantee. So they're basically saying you will enjoy this project. And if not, you can always return it. So the Everyday Earbuds Classics are a great option for everyday listening. Go to buyraycon.com/LFN to get 20% off. Nice big saving there. That's buyraycon.com/LFN to get 20% off. Thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this segment. Right, is there anything else? Do we do some questions before we wrap?
Honestly, I just opened Twitter while you did the ad read, and I just saw this, and I need you to read this.
Okay. Okay.
Because, oh my
Okay,
days.
this is wild. Okay, if this is true, obviously this is just some info coming out of the Chinese scene. It's from a Weibo post. Basically, there's a post saying that NiP and TES have a verbal agreement that they're going to swap Zhuo, who, by the way, I'm a notorious hater of. He's one of those fuckers that in rookie for a few years. They're going to swap him and Fengyue, this like stud rookie that has looked really good so far. And then it says basically they're just like finalizing the details. Now, the reason that's crazy to me, Yamato, is I'll tell you what that is immediately making me think of. I want to see if your brain went the same place. This is the fucking Weibo gaming team. What are you doing? Do you guys not know what good supports are? Literally, you're just swapping good supports for fucking nobodies. Like, if that better not be true, I'm really sad. Unless that's, again, that has to be some behind the scenes crazy shit, because that move makes no sense on paper. That's ridiculous.
It's so extremely disappointing because it's like, we've been on the show talking about how Zhuo and Fengyue are just players we're going to see for many years.
Yeah,
what if we're in a position now, let's say 369 comes back and then Zhuo is just on the bench playing in LDL, and then we have, of course, Mr. Fengyue, just being sent to NIP. It's like we suddenly these players that were in position to just be the future of this org. Plain and simple,
Yes.
the future of the organization.
Yes.
These very strong players. They are now in these, awful position. I'm only speculating on Zhuo that might happen because is a legendary player. But if that happened, then we have two players suddenly in a spot where they can't.
But I know what you mean, Yamato. My fear is because TES did so badly here, especially the Team Secret Wales loss. They do some extreme moving. I know what you mean. Even though I think the Zibian guy showed great potential, the obvious panic move would be quickly get 369 back in here, and then suddenly that guy's kicked out too, or LDL or something. Yeah, it's a nightmare in it. I don't even blame these players. These weren't the guys they need.
It's like if there's one area where like
does Jaculov secretly just own this team? Jaculov just insta shot of it. Tell you what, Fengyue, what are you doing, mate? Get the fuck out of this team. That's him. It's the other guy in my lane. This bomb's the one who did it to me. What are you talking about?
I was just oh man, I just the main thing, when the people that don't watch the LPL talk down on the LPL, the one thing that they would always be right on, this is the one argument they have about the LPL, is that the people that run the LPL teams, the off seasons, they are just ass. They are just terrible at the job. We always have the talent spread across so many teams. We have like drama between players that is ununderstandable. We have the weirdest like roster changes between splits here and there. Like if LPL if we sat down and built the LPL teams however we wanted, LPL would be so much better. It's just so spread out and all over the place.
Yes.
While you look over to the LCK and you're like, oh yeah, the 15 best players in the region are in the top 3 teams. Great, you know, that's good for you. But the LPL is just so spread out. At least you have BOG. You know, at least you have BOG with you know, complete saturation on each position. At least you have BOG. So thank God for that.
It's why, if you notice in the LPL, you can only trust super teams, bro. If they don't have a super team, they'll fuck up like this. Because the beauty of the super team is every name's too big to cut, aren't they? You don't cut a super team and bring a rookie in, so whatever. I know what you mean. Every time you get hyped about a squad, they just fuck it up like this, don't they? What even is this? And like I said, mate, why, you know, if you don't know, by the way, that term whipping boy, have you ever, do you know what the origin of that is, where you say someone's the whipping boy? It actually comes from, you're gonna appreciate this analogy when I tell you it. Back in the day, when you would have public school, which is actually bizarrely in England, public school is actually what you call private school, where you go to one where you pay to go and you'll go. I know it sounds bizarre, but it's one of those weird things about the language. When you would go there, right? Say you were actually someone of like noble lineage, you're like a prince or you know, the son of a duke or something. If you're a really, really noble person, right? Well, obviously, if you misbehave, they're not going to thrash the shit out of you because you're like a special person and your parents get mad. So what they would do for real, Yamato, this is actually evil, but it worked, is they would get a kid who was like a normal kid who just, you know, had a scholarship or something, and they'd put him in the same room as you, so he became your friend. And then what they would do is, if you misbehaved as the noble, they would whip the shit out of that other kid, and they would make you watch it. And what they would basically tell you is, I can't hurt you, because it's back in the days of corporal punishment, but essentially, I'm going to whip the shit out of your friend if you misbehave. And that would make the noble person, as long as he's not a serial killer, actually behave, because the premise was his whipping. Mate, Fengyue is the whipping boy of Jaculov here. Like, so because Jaculov shit the bed, this guy, get the fuck out. You get down this team. What's he done wrong? And I just predict like the air one, he'll just fucking look dynamite. If you don't know, by the way, NIP even has a decent ADC, he'll probably look fucking like this shit over there. And this is going to be ass, mate. So, oh, he's such a bomb as well. Why? Those same players have to just int all the best LPL players forever. I don't get it, mate.
Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe they don't make worlds, you know?
True. Oh, yeah, that's actually true. If anything, TS was too good, weren't they? So I think we need him to sort of drop down a level. Yeah. You know what? Fuck it.
In other news as well, this was very subtle because obviously the drama around Rookie, they didn't like fully announce that he's back, but IG were hosting, like someone posted the post, they were hosting a viewing party for like a World Cup game.
Okay.
And then it was like an AI image of the 5 players just watching the screen.
Okay.
And the player in the middle had Rookie written behind him, you know? So you have the Shy, Rookie, you have Wei. So this was their subtle way of saying Rookie is back because announcing it is something they can't do. So at least we have a partial confirmation that Rookie is playing in summer. How do you feel about that, Thorin?
Technically, Zhuo's going to make it up to Rookie by inting TS instead.
Yeah.
There's one less team that can go to Worlds. Let's get IG to Worlds. Yeah, I'm in. You know what? You're right. I was looking at glass half empty. Glass half full. For IG, this is awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And also, by the way, if Rookie actually does come back, that's a stacked fucking team now. I'd actually like to see that team play.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, it's like the Shy, Rookie. You know, we don't know what kind of, you know, we've never seen Rookie take a break. My man's been busy for a long time. Maybe he comes back better than ever. Maybe he might, you know, hurt our soul just a little bit, but mid lane, there's opportunity in the mid lane and the LPO, so why not? You know, why not? It's like with the mess that we have of all the other teams, IG making it to actual championship, Rookie making it to the actual championship, you know, would feel good.
Here's my dream, Yamato. I hope that that Rookie has been on some Manosphere / David Goggins shit, and he's taken the pain and the suffering of his real life, and he's just locked in. You know, he's locked in for the summer, and he's been grinding. All he's been eating is meal prep, tuna and pasta, no sauce on it or anything. He's just been in the gym all the time. That's what tell you what, no one can hurt me in here. Only I can sculpt my body who I am. I hope he's good, and I hope he comes back like a demon, motherfucker. I hope this is the obviously it's mad corp, but it's going to happen. I believe in it. I believe in it.
Bro, I'm happy that when you started Manosphere and then the name that would come after, I didn't know which direction you would go, but happy David Goggins was the guy.
Yeah.
I thought that your vision was like he went on some red pill shit and he just
Okay.
hates.
Okay, all right, I see. No, listen,
David Goggins came.
he's not doing whip or TikToks, guys. He's just fucking, just stay with it. More in the self-improvement angle of it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, nice.
Exactly. He's not like negging people or whatever when he comes back. I don't like. Anyway, whatever. Keeping him, treating me and keep him keen and all that shit. No. Anyway, right. Let's just do some questions and we'll wrap. Because obviously, in the next week's episode, we will go ham in all the massive matchups. So if you would like, it's still the old system. If you want to ask a question, subscribe to Last Nation Discord. There is a channel in there, SI questions, and we take the best questions from there. So the first question is going to be. Okay, here's an interesting one. Talon says, if Viper Golden Roads with BLG, I will point out, obviously he has to win MSI. That hasn't even been completed yet. Then win the Summer Split, and then he also has to win Worlds. So this is purely hypothetical. He's not almost done it. He's got half of it at least to go still. If he does that though, the question is, does he surpass Deft for the GOAT of ADC? This person says, I think on top of his years of excellence, being the best mage bot lane player of all time, has really given Viper a depth no other ADC has ever had in the game. Does that matter to you that much in the GOAT ADC debate? So for you, if he was to Golden Road this year, would he be the GOAT ADC? And do you think that the mage element, does that matter for you if you're comparing players?
Always when Viper's name springs up in these conversations, because for me, there's only been two. And I never thought, personally, I didn't think that Viper matches up to Ruler and Deft's career. Because the main thing that I would hold against Viper, even though when it comes to his gameplay, it's all class. It's all very, very pristine. You rarely see him having a bad performance where there were definitely games of Ruler and Deft sometimes too, where I'm like, oh, okay, my goal here is having a rough one. While Viper definitely has a lot less of those. I also, the main argument against Viper in my mind is that I also can't think of what are the 10 most memorable Viper games.
Right.
While for Deft and Ruler, for me, that's very easy. Very, very easy, even for some of the other names. And I think that achieving that high peak where you simply look untouchable, I think is a very important for me, a very important detail of that aspect. And I think also in comparison, when it comes to Viper against these two guys, there were many segments of Viper's career, even though it was shorter than these guys, where he was just on the wrong team. Like him staying on Griffin longer when he should have been, fighting it out and duking it out on the top teams is something that hurts, I think. Because in the end, it's like Ruler and Deft, they were just active for so damn long. And when I think of how good Deft was in the LPL back in 2015 and 16, and how good he was on EDG, I like how he ran the LPL. I know everyone's talking about Uzi and how he's potentially the GOAT. For me, that's inconceivable when I know how good Deft was in certain segments. And the same thing can be said for Ruler in my mind. And I think that when I think back of Viper on Griffin, I think that he was really good, but he was never the central player on that team. I think that Viper looked at his best when his team looked at its worst, which is kind of weird juxtaposition. But those series, for example, the one he played against BOG, I remember that one specifically, the one they lost in 24, where he ended the series playing MF and Jin. Someone that has the eye of the tiger of what I consider is needed for someone to be a GOAT player is not there. And I think that's a 0 percentile, such a small difference, but it makes all of the difference because I needed Viper in that series to say, you know what? I need to carry this one. And you guys need to help me to carry this one. You can't walk away from that series playing MF and Jin in the elimination matches and let that opportunity go to waste. And if Viper does the Golden Road this year, is it going to be because he is the best player on his team? I don't know if I can say that. While Ruler and Deft have had segments where they were the best in their position easily and also the best player on their team. And I think that to me is the difference maker. Just the peak of performance. And I think that's the only thing that I'm lacking from Viper, even though he might be way more consistent than both of these two guys. And that's his biggest strength.
Obviously, people will know my whole thing is I do think there's a difference between GOAT and BORT. Like, I think you can be the best player without the resume. It's just that I think GOAT, most people mean resume and you're a great player, right? I think it's supposed to mean the two. Because I think what most people mean by GOAT is if we took the best players that have won a lot, who overall had the better career, that's what they mean. They don't really mean who was the best player. Because if you ask who the best player is, you'd say which year and which month is the best player of all time from that position, you know? So it'd be like Deft in, I don't know, 2016 or something, or it'd be Ruler 2022 or so, you know, you'd pick a year like that and you'd say that was the best player. So to me, the problem that you have here is if you want to be the GOAT, like, look, Viper does have a very good resume. He's won everything in his career overall. His problem, except MSI, his only problem is, I agree with you. If you look at all the teams he was in, he's not always the main reason they won those things. Like in Griffin, I'm sorry, if people don't remember, Griffin was a bunch of studs except for Sword. But at the time, I do remember it was way more about Tarzan and Chovy. Those were the two that were like, holy fuck, these guys are going to be here forever. Listen, Griffin did have, in terms of like the other players, like obviously Lens became legendary as a captain. But to me, Viper was, there's a good analogy that actually, there's a good description rather that Kassad uses in CS. A lot of people often associate how good you are as a player with how skilled you are as a player, but he always makes the point that you can have young players that look really skilled, but they're not actually really good players yet. They don't have the basics of the game down. So he says instead of calling them the best players because they're the best aimers, you should call them a sharp player. I would say early on, Viper was a sharp player. He had mega mechanics right out of the gate, but I do think in Griffin, he was just like a good player. It wasn't some like super god tier player. And then I also think on EDG, people forget he was really good, but actually at Worlds, it wasn't that much about him. It was more about like JJ and Scout at Worlds. So he was mega before that. So I would say he was mainly like the LPL part. He was the carry. He wasn't as good at Worlds. It wasn't really an ADC meta for me, that Worlds. Then if you go to HLE, I think in HLE, he was mega. His problem is he didn't get as many chances to win because it was only in the latter years they got the better players. Like HLE is what basically made his reputation because sometimes he was 1v9ing. He had a lot of games where he was unbelievable. In fact, that's even the place where I actually think he's more famous, I would say, rather than when in Griffin was when he was playing the majors. But when he would play like the Ziggs is an obvious one in HLE, he was unbelievable at that. Like what he gave them in terms of draft depth was crazy compared to someone like Agumi Yushi who replaced him. The problem I have is what you just said there, is if we're going off GOAT and we're going to count, like this year's going to do a lot of heavy lifting if he wins the Golden Road. The problem is, as of right now, he would literally be last place on the most important players in BLG to win the Golden Road. Like, he hasn't done much, unfortunately. On paper, it looked like it was going to be a slam dunk because you were thinking, bro, if I get Animal Life Viper from Worlds into this BLG, we win everything. Actually, they've won in spite of him at times now. He's had a bunch of series that were a bit lackluster. I actually feel like people like Jun and Knight have had to play even better. Oner's had to have the best probably year of his career to get them in the win position. So right now, I actually don't think that would affect that much unless he himself, like Ruler, gets his shit together and starts being one of the reasons they win the game. If he can carry Worlds or he can carry the Summer Split, yeah, maybe we can have that conversation. So for me, I personally don't think anyone will surpass Deft. I think Deft had the mixture of incredible longevity as an elite player. Eye test always checked out in every era. And then he also has all the career accomplishments. He won all the tournaments too. So I think I think Deft probably gets to be number one. The difference is, I think a more interesting discussion to tie into what you were saying would be, you could have an interesting discussion between Ruler and Viper though. That'll start to get interesting at that point. Here's what's funny. I think the better player actually is Viper, but I think the career is obviously Ruler. Ruler's had an unbelievable career where he's made a lot of great choices. I actually think Viper's made worse choices in his career generally, not just that Griffin period. I think he's made some really weird movements of where he goes. You know, it seems to me like he's a bit impulsive when he leaves the team. He doesn't like sit down and think of a big plan. He just makes it. I'll go join them now. Like I think that's a poor way to run your career. As I point out, most great players in league, it's not even their own play. You have to be really shrewd about which teams you choose to stay on and which you leave and when. I think timing is everything on shit like that, bro. Everything.
Fucking rookie.
Definitely. By the way, when people say, oh, he was unlucky, yeah, part of it's his own fault. I think he has absolutely mismanaged his career, almost because, I'll tell you the obvious thing about someone like Rookie, I actually think they have almost an old school sports mindset of like, you're friends with the owner and you're just loyal to him. Whereas in the modern day, that's not what modern sports are. Modern sports in the West especially is about player power. It's the idea that if you don't see a vision that you agree with of them getting the right players and teammates in, you just leave and go to a different team. That does promise you all that. That says, hey, if you join, you can pick this person, I'll bring you the best ADC. I'll get you the... That's people like Rookie have fucked that up. They're on some old school shit of like, hey, just trust my boss. It's like, That's not very good, because at the end of your career, here's the problem if you're rookie. At the end of your career, if someone says, why have you got so few championships compared to Faker? No one's going to care about, yeah, but see, my boss, like, no one cares about that, man. They're judging you. You're the one that gets judged there, not the IG owner, not the fucking bot lane players in IG, who some of the people watching this episode who are going to tell me Rookie sucks. You couldn't even name 6, 8 fucking bot lane players that Rookie played with. You know nothing about this guy's career, but sadly, he did it to himself. That's the bummer. That's the bummer of it all. Right, let's do another question. So here's a fun one. Tallahassee Riot Supervisor says, we all want Inspired to go back to the LEC. If you had to build the ideal LEC team for Inspired, listen, excluding Caps, who would you team him up with? So essentially, we can't do Caps, but we're building the best squad around Inspired of LEC players. What squad are we building here, Yamato?
I think we got the easy one. We can get it out of the way. Let's just put him together with Jojo Pune again.
Seems like an obvious one, doesn't it? Yeah.
Easy.
It's also, you can even argue he's even the best mid or close to the best mid anyway. So it's a great pairing. Yeah.
Honestly, like, you know, I'm going to throw a bone to my boy Upset here too. I think that he has the skill, and I think that Inspired will get him over the finish line. You know,
Yes.
like, I think Inspired the type of guy that just gets the most out of people. And I think that, you know, Upset is going to take you places. And I think that he would cover for what could be perceived as maybe weaknesses for Upsets, you know, in terms of how he closes out, you know, splits. Because like the way Inspired moves teams, it just seems so inevitable. In terms of support, who are we throwing in there, Thorin? Who are you thinking?
I mean, if you want another, how about get the Busio connection again?
Yeah, why not?
Hey, they played great together.
This question is kind of
True.
easy.
True.
We're just making North American the North American.
I mean, if they're in the
superstars.
league, though, why not?
Yeah,
They're
why
in the
not,
league, bro?
Yeah, why not? Who are we throwing in the top lane? Are we doing the Naknako?
Here's the thing. I actually think the reason why the Naknako one is good in this case is because Inspired is such a like fucking reliable player, bro. I feel like he would get. Here's the thing. At this point in time, Yamato, the real reason why it was a red flag when Naknako did that interview is it makes it sound like he still doesn't accept the authority of his coach. Well, here's the thing, mate. I actually think Inspired has sort of been that sort of captain that has won people's respect. I think someone like him might be able to rein him in a bit, you know, because obviously you can see the talents there. If you can set this guy loose in the right way, he'd be mega. The problem is at the moment, he can be his own worst enemy, can't he? So, no, I think if you add Naknako, I think we've got a pretty fire team there, bro. Look at it. We've got an all-star team. That's a super team.
That was devious. It's dangerous.
And I'm with you. I actually think, here's the thing. If you were Upset, this would be your dream come true to play with Inspired, mate. He'll just, every time you have the better bot lane matchup, he'll just get you ahead. He'll just accelerate your fucking lane and you'll just be at that team fight ahead on items and kills. And you'll just fucking carry the game.
It would pretty much be the equivalent of just being the Viper on the current BOG with this roster. Because I think, if anything, this would be the European reflection of what BOG currently is.
Yes. Okay. Let's see if you have an answer for this. So Fede says, what's the worst hangover you've ever had? And what's the worst thing you've had to do while hungover?
Oh, you know,
You had some legendary ones?
Honestly, it's like the majority of drinking that I've done is with homemade alcohol. And
Okay.
the curious thing about homemade alcohol is that the hangovers aren't that bad.
Because it's usually pretty clean, right?
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
clean and well done. And
Yeah.
you know, one bottle, like 1 liter, is distilled over months and months.
Yes.
So like I've been, you know, very, you know, drunk, but never to the point where like the next day it's bad. So I haven't had those horrible hangovers. I've carried my, you know, my alcohol pretty damn well. So no big stories.
Okay.
You know, I have this one memory of that isn't necessarily a hangover, but there was this dream hack that I went to. This was back in season 2. I competed at this dream hack, and basically I was underage, but there was this after party, and I got into this after party because I went there with all of the other homies, and you know, the bar was open. You know, everyone's having a good time. I remember this was the one where infamously Stefano, you know, like had the whole thing.
Okay.
You know,
When he threw up on himself and he got carried out by the police. And that iconic
That
picture.
moment, you know, where it was in the news, you know, and shit like this. The police had to get.
Still one of the most gangster pictures of all time. He's been like carried out with shades on. Looks dope, doesn't it? I know. Even though he was just being sick on himself, it wasn't cool. Like it just looked iconic, is all, you know.
Yeah. So everybody was there. Like the meta back in the old days was that everyone was getting fucked up. And I remember I did this thing where I picked up tabs and I half threw him at a blackjack table. And obviously, like blackjack tables are very expensive. There were a bunch of drinks on the table, and the drinks would just spill all over the felt. And the security just grabbed me. They threw me against the wall. You know how violent they are. And they're like, "You have to pay for this table." And they quoted like they have to pay like 8,000 euro to refelt the table. And then I just said, you know what? I'm underage. You let me in here.
Oh, and checkmated him. I like that. That's some like suit shit, bro. I like that. Okay.
Instantly let me go, you know. Okay. And then I walked away, and then they realized they did the fucking up, you know.
Exactly. They didn't think it through.
They didn't think it through at all. And they let me in, and I had no ID on me. I was underage. And that was my checkmate. I think that is the most that is the worst thing I've done. You know, the harm to the blackjack table in conjunction with alcohol. So that's my story.
Put it this way, one of the things about my era of being British is, I don't know, I have no idea what kids do now, but my era was the era where, because you invented like alcohol pops, no one did, like traditional British drinking, by the way, is you go to the pub after work and you sit and you have 2 or 3 beers with other people you know from your area. It's a local pub. We never did that. We did the shit where it's like you just binge drink. You pick one night a week, and on that one night you go to like the biggest town you can go to, and you just basically drink all night long for like 7-8 hours. So unfortunately, I've had loads of nights where I've had bad hangovers and really bad ones. So, but I'll give you a couple, because there's 2 that aren't related to like being at home. So one was like 20 odd years ago, I actually was friends with a Finnish pro. It was a guy called Nartu, and I actually went and briefly lived for a month or 2 in Finland with him. And when I got there, I did that thing where I went with like a whole bunch of spending money that I could, use over the month and a half. And I did that thing where the first night I was Mr. Billy Big Balls in the club, fucking ching, ching, ching. And so the first night I spent like about fucking 2/3 of the money. I spent like 400 euros in one night. And I just remember the next day waking up, like, first of all, doing that thing like, someone stole my money. I realized I haven't. I've just spent it all on like, fucking the most expensive shots there are. Worst of all, this is the mistake I made. I think I've told this story before. We were drinking this, like, there's a type of Finnish shot alcohol that's licorice flavored, right? Bro, if you think it's bad throwing up, imagine throwing up licorice black colored shit, like you're like an alien or something. That's even worse. And it's all licorice flavored. And then also, because I'd spent the 400 euros, the one good thing is there's actually a positive part that came out of it, which was Nartu, the guy I was with, was like, I know what we do now. And we went to this pizza shop, because in the Nordics, if people don't know, pizza shops open for lunch as well. They're not just like opening at night. We went to a pizza. We had to wait, like literally looking at the clock, like tick, 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 please, until it opened at like 11 a.m. And we just ordered this pizza that was just called like the works. And it just had every topping you could have on a pizza, Yamato. It had like fucking sausage, bacon, chicken, pineapple, peppers. And I'll tell you what, Yamato, I don't even like half that shit, but it like healed my soul to eat this pizza. I felt like as I was eating it, I was coming back to life, like, oh God. So that one was actually turned out to be good. In a weird way, I actually remember that pizza so favorably. It was like taking a health pack in a game. My health instantly was at 50%. I was back in the game. And then the other one is, I did have one when I lived in Korea, where I went out, and this is where Korean girls have a trick I didn't know about, because no one's ever done this in the West, which is when I would always be like buying drinks for girls I was on dates with. I had this one girl where her trick to counter us was, if you bought a drink, sometimes she would just drink like a little bit of it and then just be like, you drink the rest. And so, well, obviously I'm already, to be responsible, I'm trying to walk the line of being just drunk enough to have a good time. But I'm not factoring in extra drinks I didn't plan on drinking. So when she's telling me, drink the rest of this shot, obviously at the end of the night, I've just had like twice as much as I should have. So I do remember the next day, this was really worrying, bro. I woke up and my passport was gone. And I searched the whole apartment, bro. And are you ready? This is what life's like. The day my passport was missing, I got an email from MLG, who I'd never worked with, who were like, hey, we've got like a big MLG event. We want to fly you out to America in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I remember I'm in Korea, so I can't even go home to the UK, get a new passport. I'm just thinking like, one, how do I even go home? I'm gonna have to tell them like, give me a temporary passport to get home. And then two, I'm going to be fucked this event, sir. So, but luckily, this is where I had to go next level, bro. I had to actually, on some like Sherlock Holmes shit, go to every place I could have been that night before and start like interviewing people. And here's what's mad. The universe didn't want me to win this one, Yamato. When I went back to this club, I was so sure it must be that club because it's one of the ones where I think I put my coat on the floor for a moment, you know, maybe like it fall out the pocket or something. I go back and I go there and I ask the person, oh, is it possible I've lost my passport? And then they were like, nah, we've looked and lost and found, there's nothing there. So then the girl I was with at the time's like, well, we'll just go to the next place. But for some reason, something told me like, but it can't be anywhere else. There's only like 2 places I could have lost this. So I went back myself another day. And this is where, like, complete luck. There was just someone in there, like you know, the manager person wasn't there. There was just like a staff who was there. And I said, oh, I think I lost my wallet the other day in this club. Like, it's possible I put my coat down or something. And the person I was talking to was just like a random pleb worker, just goes, oh, maybe it's in the cloakroom there, like, you know, where you put the coats. They went to the courtroom and it actually was there. There was like a separate area from Lost and Found where if it was in a pocket of the coat, they hadn't checked the courts, I guess. And it was just in this like jacket. And so I actually got the passport back. So luckily both stories ended in sort of a not end of the world way. Because I'm trying to tell people, by the way, you don't want a story that ends with like, and then I looked and I had 3 legs. It's like, well, that's the end of that then. Oh, I got a tattoo of my whole body. You don't want that one. That you have gone too far. Mine at least had like a comedic end to them. But yeah, there's been some bad ones. And then when he said, what's the worst thing you've done? Not related to those 2 stories. Easily the worst thing ever is some of the events in Counter-Strike where we did go drinking on like night 2, and then you've had to work an entire day of an esports broadcast really hungover. Look, I got through it because I'm a pro and I was drinking the caffeine at the right time, but that wasn't fun. I can tell you right now. That's one of those ones where you just go, yeah, it seemed like a good idea last night. Sort of regretting it now. I have another 6 fucking maps of Counter-Strike to watch and be engaged with and think of shit to say. So anyway, that'll do. We'll do one last question. Right, let me see. Wait there a second. All right, I'll tell you what, we'll make this one a simple one. It's by the dog, but I'm going to make it short. He says, according to this MSI format, T1 is roughly the 8th best team at this tournament and should win maybe 1 match if they're lucky, because he's being silly about the seeding, obviously. So essentially, the real question is this. Like, do we ever think there was a year at Worlds where in the main event, it was the closest to the best teams globally that you could have ever? Is there a year that actually, look, obviously there's never going to be one because loads of the Korean and Chinese teams would be in the ranking. But what do you think the closest is? Is there a Worlds you could think of which was like most of the best teams were there? What year are you thinking of if you're thinking of one?
Damn, that's a very odd question. I would have to like scroll back. I'm thinking like the earlier ones, like
Okay.
but maybe that was the lack of knowing, like the season 1s and the season
Sure.
2s. I'm trying to think of like if there was anyone missing back then, but I can't really think of them because it's like in season 2 we had Moscow 5, we had
Yes.
COG, we had you know, did we have Fnatic? Probably Fnatic was missing, so that was like,
No, it's in season 2, yeah.
yeah, so we're missing someone there. Your memory serves you better always with these ones. Where does your mind go?
I mean, the real problem, like you say, is the easiest one is going to be early league because the regions weren't as deep at that point in time. So you're right. Like if you go to like season 2, season 3, season 4, it's probably as close as you can get. I agree. The main issue is going to be you can pick out a Worlds or 2 in the latter day that were really stacked, but almost certainly the 4th and 5th LPL and LCK teams would have beaten like Mad Lions or fucking CLG or something like that, wouldn't they, if they went to the tournament? So I agree. The latter ones are going to be a lot harder. Like if I even try to think in the modern day, I think it's probably
2015 was a good one.
That's pretty good.
I just pulled it up, and 2015 was a good one because we had Fnatic, Origin, and then from North America we had TSM, Cloud9, and COG.
Yeah.
The Korean teams was SKT, Cool Tigers, and KT, and then the LPL teams were IG, EDG, and of course LGD. So that was like
that's pretty good, actually.
Good
that's
one.
about as close as you can get, yeah.
That was a pretty good one. Yeah,
Just a
it's a pretty
shame
good
that
one.
tournament was the one where it had Mordekaiser and fucking all that shit and ruined the whole draft, didn't it? I know. They actually ruined that one, bro. They ruined
Yeah.
it. Anyway, if you
Oh,
want to ask a
man.
question, subscribe to Leslie Nation Discord. We'll be back next week to wrap up MSI and get into all the games.
Yes, sir.